Catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan scratch it. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. Catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. What you know about classic music?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series. And I'm here making his epic return to the Retro Wrestling Review Series. And who knows how long. The guy that picked this show, and you're going to find out why in a second, Chris Dodd, how are you today?
I'm doing fucking fantastic.
When's the last time we did a retro together? I know you did NXT TakeOver All Evolution, but I wasn't on that one. So when's the last time, we did a retro together? I think it's been a long-ass time.
I couldn't even tell you. Too long.
Yeah, much too long. You hadn't picked a retro in a while, so I figured I'd let you pick a retro.
Get the boot.
Well, what happened, too, was I think you picked New Mercy UK, but none of our schedules didn't line up enough, and since the UK pay-per-views already happened and everything, there was no point in doing it anymore. So I basically just let you pick whatever show you wanted, and you picked today's retro, which is WWE Raw from October 9th, 2017. If it's not the right date, it's going to be in the title, so just read the title. I typically have the guest say why he picked the show, but I feel like the segment we're going to break down, it happens right away. We'll explain everything about why he picked the show. Because if you know Chris's history on this channel, you'll understand he picks the show once you see the opening segments. Because let's be honest here, too. The opening segment's really the only reason to ever go back and watch the show.
The opening and the middle, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. This show is garbage. I forgot how absolutely terrible this show was.
I know. Let's give a little behind-the-scenes history. We actually reviewed this show in real time when it happened. I don't remember what we said about this show at the time because it's been so long. But I remember
in person.
Yeah, this was when we were doing the Aftershock Corner, when it was the Aftershock Corner. All together. I honestly think this was 2017. It was either 2017 or 2015 is like my favorite year ever doing the show because we were all in person together. We had the most fun doing it together. We had everybody. I think that's too. We found out we had our crew because we always flip flop everybody. It was always this person was on and this person was on. But I think that that's when we had our full time crew. We had John Tuddy on. We had Chris Dodd on. James Hebert had returned to the show later in the year and everything. And I think that's just when we were having the most fun doing the show.
Steve Coakley.
Steve Coakley's what?
Steve Coakley also.
Yeah. How could you forget? Because that was
they ruined the gimmick almost instantly.
That was when he had his infamous table flip. And there's actually, we're going to talk about it when we get to that segment. There's an infamous moment of the Aftershock Corner, what's now known as the Wrestling Rundown. I don't know if you remember when you watched the segment that debuts on that show from that segment. So I actually think we probably liked the show at the time because we had so much fun reviewing the show together. So I think
we just goof around and do our own little bits in there, and just all of us together was just a recipe for mayhem.
Yeah. So I think that it's gonna make me question if we ever review a show from like this timeline, what we actually say now. Because one, also too, we know what happens now. We didn't really know what was gonna happen in real time.
Yeah.
And also too, I think because we were doing it together, we would grade the show higher than what it actually is because we had so much fun doing it and everything like that. So,
oh yeah, because we were all together. It was one of the few years that we were actually all together and doing it.
Yeah. I want to see if I can like find a way. Like, I understand we probably couldn't pay it or anything. Like, well, we could like rent out a studio or something, and like all meet up at like a studio or something to do the show in person. But it's like no one has the time anymore.
Yeah.
And I think this is when everybody was watching at least all the shows at one point. Even if somebody missed the show, somebody was always watching something, so it helped.
Keep them
like
up.
that person. Yeah, and that person could like carry the show, and like because we're all such big wrestling fans, we were also all able to talk about it and everything. But yeah, I hope like before I ever had to close down this channel, we can do it at the time. But yeah, let's just start talking about this show. I will say this is the first time I have watched a Vince produced show since I've started watching the product since Triple H has taken over. And there's some people out there that don't believe that Vince is really retired. He's still running things. Go watch this show compared to a Raw nowadays and tell me otherwise, because you could totally tell the difference between a show run by Vince and a show run by Triple H. It's
100% different.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, just the people that are on the show, 4 or 5 of them were gone a year ago.
I know. And the storylines, you can just tell are only there to appease Vince. We're going to talk about them because there's 2 storylines on this show that I think appease Vince and nobody else. The commentators sound completely different, especially Michael Cole on this show. You could easily tell that Vince is in his ear because
oh yeah.
I think a lot of people gave flack to Michael Cole for being a bad commentator but if you listen to him now versus on this show, it's easily a night and day difference.
100% difference.
Yeah, so if you're telling me Vince is really still running things, I go watch this show and then tell me that again. So, to kind of give you some history behind this show, this was when they were still in the second stage of the brand split. I'd say the brand split's kind of over now at the moment. They still kind of talk about it a little bit, but I think since Triple H has taken over, it's not as much of a thing anymore because they've unified all the championships and everyone's kind of going wherever they want kind of now anyways. This is when the brand split was in full effect, and there was no pyro anymore because WWE was doing some pay cuts. I don't think it's called pay cuts, but they were doing some budget cuts. And there was no pyro at all on the show, which is completely different now, which sucks that they had to get rid of the pyro because that's like the biggest thing that everyone looks forward to going to a show live.
I think pyro came back in 19 or 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was around there. It was definitely before the pandemic, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then no other differences was the commentary team. I should say the commentary team was located on the stage. I think that changed during the pandemic because I remember when they were on the Thunderdome, the commentary team would be would be by ringside where it is now. I think they changed that once they entered the Thunderdome, pretty much. At least on Raw, anyways, because Raw was always on the stage. And trying to think any other changes on the show that you wouldn't really. I
actually really like that setup though.
Yeah, I do too. I'm just saying that was also a change that they made.
Yeah, that was. I kind of liked it up. I like it was different.
Yeah, and then the stage is different now too, where it's is it the skateboard stage nowadays, like the one that Kevin Owens dove off of like before the pandemic, or is it? I'm pretty sure the stage is.
It's the one before that.
Okay. No, I'm saying nowadays. I know back then it's like
nowadays it's the it's WrestleMania 34. I want to say.
Yeah, I know 34. It's like
It was I think it was Roman Reigns versus Triple H was the main event. That WrestleMania, it's that stage.
Yeah, so like the stage is different. And yeah, let's start talking about this show. We had the commentary team of Corey Graves, Michael Cole, and Booker T. This was that phase where Booker T was doing commentary because David Otunga had got drafted over to Raw during the Superstar Shakeup, but he had a movie role or something going on. So Booker T like took his place. It was supposed to be temporary, but it ended up being like full time eventually because David Otunga, I think, eventually came back and he would just like do the panels pretty much. What a terrible! Like I said, you could definitely tell this is run by Vince, but you could definitely tell that Booker T is the crappy one on commentary. He is not good at all. We're going to talk about it with some of the points that he makes on this show.
It's like he's not terrible, but like he's bad.
Yeah,
I've seen worse. I've heard worse commentators.
but like,
but he's bad. He's just like flip flops and like
yeah,
he breaks like character a lot and like
he makes like points that have like nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. He makes points that have nothing to
do throughout the entire show.
Yeah,
Or he goes to Michael Cole, dude. It's so funny.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later. And I'm going to talk about this now, too. You can instantly tell, by the way, the difference in Corey Graves. I think we talk about Cole. I don't think anyone talks about Graves because everyone thinks he's the same. If you listen to Corey Graves on commentary now, it's instantly a different Corey Graves than when he's run by Vince.
Yeah, you can tell because he's talking about shit that happened prior to when they were in WWE. Like someone brought up a lot of NXT facts. He wasn't doing that before.
Yeah, he was just in character. We had the intro, and the intro was basically the intro that's before this one, the WWE Then, Now, and Forever, where it's, if you've seen Ups and Downs that Simon Miller does, he basically took that intro because they stopped using it by the time, he started doing that intro, which is kind of funny that happened. So, no Law intro, that's just when they stopped doing that for a while. It was just like a video, it was just a clip that happened the previous week. And that was about it. It started out with Miz TV with the Bar. I'll kind of give them a behind the scene talk about what was going on. This was at the time when the Miz was the Intercontinental Champion, and he had started a feud with Roman Reigns. And this is at the time, I think it was reported heavily throughout the summer and everything that they were going to reform the Shield. They were already starting in that direction when they put Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins together as a tag team. And they were doing that storyline where Dean Ambrose had to trust Seth Rollins at the time. It was actually like one of the best storylines that was going on in the summertime.
It was awesome.
And they had finally were able to work together as a tag team, and they won the Raw Tag Team Championships. And we just needed to get Roman Reigns to get him in a narrative. I can't really say that word without thinking about CYN now, but
they were controlling his narrative.
Yeah, they had to get him into a narrative where it would have made sense for him to join the Shield, and they were really teasing it on social media and everything. I remember you were you were really excited about it too because articles would come out. This is when I think this is when. Not when we started the rundown chat and everything, but I think this is when you got into that phase where you would just share articles, and I think every article you would share or everything would be about the Shield possibly reforming at this time. And
I think we had a chat. I think we had a chat of some kind.
Yeah.
Or no, you know what it was? It was our Facebook group. That's where I was sharing them.
Yeah. So, it was really heavily reported, and then Roman Reigns got into a feud with The Miz, and, it was over the IC title, and this is when The Miz was with the B team, which was at the time known as The Miz Tour.
And they were kind of aligned with the Bar.
Yeah.
Who was also simultaneously feuding with Rollins and Ambrose.
And the week before, the Roman Reigns fought The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship. And the Bar got involved in that. And I think that's when it was confirmed. Even though what happens later in the show, that's when we kind of knew that the Shield were going to reunite. Because the Bar were feuded with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins at the same time. So that was when it was going to be confirmed that the Shield were getting back together. And when it was definitely confirmed at the end of the previous episode of Raw, Roman Reigns was sitting in his locker room, and Ambrose and Rollins came in, and they all had a face-off together. And that was when it was confirmed that the Shield would get him back together. I think I remember because we watched the show live and everything. And this was when you were able to last an episode of Raw, because this was before you went into your old man stage where you can't even stay up for Raw anymore. Hey, you know it's true. You couldn't even survive NXT this past week, and that's only on to 10 o'clock.
Hey, fucking old.
I remember you posted, "Oh my God, what's happening? The Shield is getting back here." You were like all excited about it. I think you bought. Did you buy the Shield T-shirt that you have now at this time too? Because you knew the Shield were getting back together. I think this is right around the time you bought the Shield T-shirt.
I think it was right around that time period. Because after, like, in their different incarnations, like later on, I got those shirts. I got that when they came back.
Which I think,
time, which is obviously on the show.
Yeah,
I got that shirt like almost right after that.
Yeah, so
I have all three variations of the shirt.
However, I do want to talk about this though, because this cannot be ignored. I think John and I brought this up at the time. I don't think you wanted to hear it because you were so excited about the Shield to get together. Let's be honest about why they were probably putting the Shield together, because this was at the time not as bad, where they were trying to do anything that they could to get people to like Roman Reigns, because they were still booing Roman Reigns, because this is when we had thought he just retired The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and he was being booed even more, which is like, what a way to get a guy over as a babyface. Have him retire the most beloved legend in the business and still promote him as a babyface. Great way to do that. So Roman Reigns was still being booed, and they had that plan that he was going to face Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, which nobody wanted because obviously Braun Strowman had caught fire around this time, and like right away, and that was in the horizon. So I think they were doing anything that they could to get people to cheer Roman Reigns, and they knew that putting the Shield back would do that. Did it work? We'll talk about it when we actually review the show, because spoiler alert, that's why we're here right now.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the segment itself. It was Miz TV with the bar. The Miz was out there with Curtis Axel. Bo Dallas wasn't there because he was under the weather. And with what we know happens later on in the month, we'll talk about it. I think we know why Bo Dallas was under the weather. He had the mumps, I think. Because,
yeah, he did. I think he did. Oh my God, we'll get to that.
Yeah, because that was when that thing was going around. Which, let's be honest, the mumps ended up, for one reason on this show, ended up being the best thing that ever happened. Huh?
It completely changed TLC.
Yeah.
So
the Miz,
partially for the better.
You know what? I'm going to be nice here. Since this is the reason that we're here, and you picked this, why don't you break down this segment? Because I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if you didn't break down this segment.
So Miz TV is happening. Miz is doing his talking shit that he usually does, and he's giving up Mizzies for basically being better than Roman Reigns, essentially.
Yeah.
And he gives a Mizzy to himself. He gives a Mizzy to, I think he gave a Mizzy to Curtis Axel.
Yeah.
And he gave a Mizzy to the bar. And then Roman Reigns cuts him off, and Miz goes on a long spiel.
I want to point out a couple of things before. The Miz was also the Intercontinental Champion at the time, and I think one thing we got to point out too is because the Bar come out to do a promo, and I don't usually talk about it but it's kind of important here. When Cesaro went to cut his promo, this was right after he got his teeth knocked in at No Mercy. So he was still
or whatever for like a few months. Or a year, I think it was.
Yeah. So he really couldn't cut much promos. I feel like I said, this is definitely an example of how things have changed, because if he got that injury nowadays, Triple H, there's no way he would have had him cut a promo, because he was being basically, I feel like Vince got like a laugh every time Cesaro had to cut a promo. Because
he couldn't talk.
Yeah. So
his front teeth were literally knocked in. He had no front teeth.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and like just immediately it was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, continue talking about this segment.
So Roman comes out. I forget what Miz is saying, but he cuts him off basically, and Miz cuts a promo on Roman saying that uh, rumors of the Shield reuniting and stuff like that, and then he goes, "Why don't you go into the back and get Dean and Seth?" And then Roman goes, "Rumors. These aren't rumors." And
Yeah.
then Seth and Dean come out, and they beat the living shit out of everyone in the ring.
Yeah.
Dirty deeds to the Miz. The triple power bomb. I almost called it the Shield bomb. By the way, I'm never doing that again. That's an awful name.
I think
Michael
that's
Cole called that later on in the show, and I wanted to hang myself.
That's the first time he said it too.
Yeah, I hate that name so much. It's the fucking triple power bomb. They do the Shield pose, the fist. It was awesome. The Shield reunited, and that's the only reason why we're doing this goddamn show, because I forgot how terrible this Raw was. It absolutely sucked, but it was 2 segments with the Shield in it that we'll get to later that were the best part of the goddamn show.
Yeah. This is a hell of a segment here. I forgot how awesome it was.
If I ever want like nostalgia for the Shield again, I'll go back and watch this, and it's like, wow, this was awesome. They did this really well. And if I want to watch the build up to that, I watch it from the year prior to when Dean and Seth teamed up again and had the 3 weeks before where they were doing the fist and they weren't doing it. And then in Boston, they did the fist and the place went crazy. And I watched from there to when they reunited again.
Let's talk about, too, one big thing that happened. One big thing that should be mentioned is this is the same venue, too, where the Shield broke up, too. So it was awesome that they got back together at the same venue where they broke up. So
they got back together and they broke up in the same arena.
Yeah, so that was... Yeah, debut too. So it was awesome. Yeah, hell of a segment here. That's the only reason to watch the show. Then they showed a Susan G.
Garbage.
Then it showed a Susan G. Komen ad. Because this is when, since it was October, they were doing that. They're probably going to do that again this year. So the middle rope would be pink. I'm glad they've gotten away now with Superstar's attire being pink, because I remember one time Goldust, when he first came back to the company, had to wear like pink gloves, and it really like didn't fit him at all or something like that. So I'm glad they've gotten away from that now. They didn't have like a promo on this show though with the Susan G. Komen, because they usually do. But to be honest, I'm going to be honest. I think I've talked about this before. You know what's funny now? This is like another noticeable change that with Vince. Now that they talk about all this stuff with Vince not being retired, you believe it's more genuine. When Vince was running things, you didn't really believe it was genuine, because Vince in storyline all the time would talk shit about cancer. Like I remember one storyline, he mentioned how beating cancer. Like he basically said at one point he's worse than cancer and everything. He'd make comments all the time about cancer and everything. So like when he would do it, you didn't believe it was genuine. So one thing I also don't like that they have had it, that I hope this changes, is they put the Ultimate Warrior's name associated with cancer. And this is I know we're talking about this. I don't like this, because Ultimate Warrior basically talked shit about Bobby the Brain Heenan when he had cancer, basically saying that it couldn't have happened to a better guy or something along those lines. So that needs to change like right now, because Ultimate Warrior's name should not be associated at all when they do the Susan G. Komen thing because of his freaking comments. That's ridiculous.
It shouldn't be associated with that.
Yeah. Then we had the next match. I forgot this was a freaking thing.
I forgot about this too.
Jason Jordan versus Carl Anderson with Luke Gallows ringside. So this was at the time when Kurt Angle supposedly had an illegitimate son. And let's be honest, everyone wanted it to be Chad Gable. It should have been Chad Gable. And they swerved us and went with Jason Jordan instead because, lol. Again, because Vince McMahon likes to... I think Vince McMahon had a laugh about it. And it was terrible at the time because it was obvious. I mean, I know it would have been obvious with Chad Gable, but at least that would have made a little bit more sense because of everything, of basically their careers parallel each other. I mean, Kurt Angle and him just recently did a segment together, and he's honestly like Kurt Angle 2.0 nowadays, Chad Gable. But they went with Jason Jordan, and it was also stupid because they broke up American Alpha for this storyline, and you can make the argument had this storyline not happened, Jason Jordan would probably still be wrestling to this day. And also, too, it was just way too obvious he wasn't his son. The one best thing that came out of it, though, is there was a GIF for like something came out online. I think it was a YouTube clip. Where if you've seen the Family Guy episode, I think it's when Peter loses his driver's license, so he's got to find a way to entertain himself. And they did a cutaway where he got like a TV show with like his black son or whatever. The theme song they did for that, they used for like a big compilation video with Kurt Angle and Jason Jordan, which is just hilarious. And yeah, basically, they never really played up to it. Really, like when it was announced that Jason Jordan was Kurt Angle's son, they never had like any segments together until basically it was too late, and it ruined Jason Jordan's career literally and on screen because he was getting booed heavily, and they were trying to promote him as a babyface when he wasn't.
Didn't work. But at the same time, like, this is in October. There's not much time left on his in-ring career, too.
I know, yeah.
From now, from October to the October show that we're doing until I think like the almost like February or January or March of the following year, he was done.
Yeah. So, So one thing I forgot that he had was I'm not kidding you. He basically had a remix of Kurt Angle's TNA theme music. I completely forgot this was a thing. It's like so bad too. Like,
oh my God. I didn't even think of that until you just said it.
If you go listen to his theme song, he has it. On the show.
Oh my God! As soon as you just said that, the freaking theme song popped into my head.
Yeah, this was when we were having a strand of bad and generic theme songs around this time too. So I forgot this was a thing, and the reason for this match was because the week before, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows basically called Jason Jordan and Matt Hardy a nerd, so it built to a tag match the week before where the Gallows and Anderson won by pinning Matt Hardy because, obviously Matt Hardy was being shit on at this time. He
wasn't nerd, though.
Yeah, so, it basically led to this match. Really not much of a match here. Jason Jordan gets the advantage early of the match, and then Carl Anderson goes after the arm of Jason Jordan, really targets it for a while. Then eventually Jason Jordan mounts a comeback. He goes for the Gallows distracts Jason Jordan, and Jordan, knocks him off the apron, hits a roll-up onto Carl Anderson, gets the win, and then he escapes before Luke Gallows can attack him. And believe it or not, this feud didn't continue. This was it afterwards, I remember. Nothing happens afterwards. It didn't set up anything. It was like, what was the point of this? I gave this match like 2.5 stars. It was a decent little match, but it's like, not thinking about it, like it didn't lead to anything. Like it didn't lead to like...
It didn't lead to anything.
Yeah. And afterwards, backstage on an exclusive, Kurt Angle congratulated Jason Jordan on his win and said that he's really proud of him and everything. He's really making good strides in the company. When it's like they've been doing this for a while, and his role in the company hasn't changed all that much. This is like one of those occasions where Booker T couldn't decide what side he was on, because prior to this, Booker T was talking about how Jason Jordan was receiving favoritism and not getting much opportunities, talking about how he was having matches with John Cena and Roman Reigns and not earning those matches. And it doesn't even make sense that Booker T would say this, because had this been the case, I don't think he'd be wrestling Carl Anderson on just a random episode of Raw. He didn't get any title matches. He didn't get any championships or any of that. So I don't even understand what Booker T was talking about. But then in this match, Booker T mentions how he likes him and everything. And Corey Graves and Michael Cole are roasting Booker T because he literally changed his mind.
Flip-flopped like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on there. Your thoughts on this match and everything?
It was okay. I like both the competitors in the match. But yeah, it led to nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
As for where both competitors are, like we talked about before, Jason Jordan, his career was over after this. He got a bad neck injury. Now he's a producer backstage. As for Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, WWE just never understood how to use them. Basically, the only time they would use them is if they reformed the club, whether it was with Finn Balor or AJ Styles, and they'd just be their lackeys, pretty much. They really didn't do anything. They would get the tag titles, but they wouldn't have a long reign or anything like that with the belts. So eventually they got released during the Black Wednesday releases, and they've just been having a run ever since at Impact, AEW, and New Japan, basically holding every championship that they can. The Impact tag titles 3 times. And at the moment, Carl Anderson is the current never open weight champion. And it looks like they might be possibly coming back to WWE and doing some club reformation with either AJ Styles or Finn Balor. Probably AJ Styles, considering the fact that Finn Balor is the leader of Judgment Day right now. So,
it could happen.
I'd love to see that, by the way, too.
I would too.
A Judgment Day.
They had talk earlier this year.
Yeah.
With Anderson and Gallows. WWE did when Vince is in charge, but they fizzled out. I wonder if that will change now with Triple H in charge.
Yeah. Next, The Miz and Curtis Axel are backstage. This is so funny because The Miz is laid out, and he's really selling the injuries of being laid out. And it's just so over dramatically cringy a little bit, but it's so hilarious. He's got an ice pack on his jaw and everything. And Kurt Angle comes up to him and he's asking The Miz if he's okay, if he's received any injuries or anything. And The Miz is like, "No, I'm fine. I'm good." And I think that the only reason Kurt Angle asks these questions is because he tells The Miz that he booked, and he basically also says that he's going to fight the Shield the first opportunity they get. And he makes a match at TLC. It's a tables, ladders, and chairs match. It's going to be the Shield's first match back together since before they broke up against The Miz and The Bar. And obviously The Miz isn't very happy about this. And he also says that he wants the Shield fined of everything. Basically anything that a heel would say and everything. Decent little segment here. One thing that sucks about Kurt Angle as GM at the time is because his lines would be scripted, every fourth word he would say, he would screw it up every time.
Bad.
Good segment here though. This was right before they started dropping the ball with Kurt Angle as the GM, because they'd bring back Stephanie McMahon when where she chew his ass out and everything. This was when Kurt Angle's GM was actually still pretty good and everything like that. So, your thoughts on this backstage segment?
It was okay. I mean, it set up a pay-per-view match. So,
and if you remember, we're going to talk about it later. This pay-per-view match is changes 4 times in the span of 2 weeks. So, since we're not going to talk about him for the rest of the show, since this is the last appearance, if you want to know what Curtis Axel is, basically, he would continue teaming with Bo Dallas for the rest of his career, pretty much. They would become the B team after The Miz got drafted over to SmackDown, and they would win the Raw tag team titles, and then they drop them, and they basically just be an enhancement tag team. And then when Curtis Axel got released, he basically just kind of didn't do anything in the business. He was brought back for a small period of time as a road agent backstage, and he hasn't been seen since. So, which is a shame because I think they could have utilized him a little more. But next, Elias has his performance. if you've seen any Elias performance, it's basically the same thing that he does as a heel. He basically calls out the crowd and everything. And one funny thing that happens is the crowd boos him, and he says, "You know what? If you're just going to be that way, I'm not going to perform then." And the crowd cheers, and Elias says, "But you know what? I like hearing myself talk. Oh, no, I like hearing myself perform, so I'm just going to perform anyways." I thought that was hilarious that he did that. And this is one of those funny things because this is when the commentary rules would change because Michael Cole would go back to his heel fade because he loved hearing Elias and everything like that. Booker T was really indifferent on it, and Corey Graves hated hearing Elias perform. So it was kind of funny how the commentary rules would change anytime Elias was out there. I remember at one point during the match that he has on this show, Michael Cole was saying that the center of Guns N' Roses was really praising Elias and everything. And you just know that sounded like such bullshit. That's just definitely a line that Vince freaking fed him to say.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know if Vince even fed that line because I wouldn't be shocked if Vince probably doesn't even know who that band is. So then Elias gets interrupted because he always does get interrupted. And he gets interrupted by Titus O'Neil. I forgot the segment was even a thing. And he interrupts him, and he basically performs a banjo and does a baby-face version of Elias' song, except it's Titus O'Neil that's doing it instead. This was actually pretty good stuff here by Titus O'Neil. This was when they were doing the Titus brand stuff at the time. Apollo Crews was part of the Titus brand. Boy, did they not utilize that well. That could have been a big thing on Raw to save people's careers. I remember they started that for a while, where it was Apollo Crews, and then remember Tozawa was in the group, but once he was out of the Cruiserweight title picture, he basically vanished out of the group without any explanation.
Oh yeah, he's just gone.
Like that. They really could have done something with it, where it was basically a babyface version of of the Hurt business of what it is now and everything. It's really disappointing they didn't do anything with it. They even could have put them back together when Apollo Crews was feuding with the Hurt business. I don't know why they never did. I mean, I guess Titus O'Neil in-ring career was dying down around that point, so I guess that makes sense. But it then led to the match. The match was decent. A lot of the problem with these matches is a lot of them start and take place during the commercial break, so you don't even see half of the match.
Yeah, it's weird.
So when the match starts, Elias is already in control of it and everything like that. Apollo Crews gets a small little comeback. He hits a standing moonsault in the ring, and then he hits a moonsault onto the outside, and then right to the match is starting to get good and everything. It's just over. Elias hits Drift away, and that's it. This match is 2 stars. It really wasn't anything all that special. And again, we're gonna say this again. It doesn't lead to anything. I think Elias was meant to be feuding with them, and then the feud was just over. The next week. I don't remember anything happening after that.
Yeah, it just ended.
This is an example of Vince's booking where he just loses interest in it, and then it's just never brought up ever again. Yeah, what'd you think of this match?
It was not very good.
Yeah,
it was okay.
And this was at the time too, where Apollo Crews was being used terribly. He's just being jobbed out left and right, and every time it looked like he was going to get a little bit of a push, it'd be over. It really sucks.
It was bad. They just didn't care after a while.
It really sucks because the biggest push he's probably ever had in his career was during the freaking pandemic era. Other than that, I guess now in NXT, but the biggest push he's probably ever had on the main roster was during the time there was no fans for the most part. So that sucks. As for where both guys went, Elias's role never really changed all that much. He would just sometimes be a face or a heel with this gimmick. He'd get a few 24/7 championship defenses. Then he got really badly injured or something, so he was off TV for a while. And then his brother, Ezekiel, debuted. Not the same guy. That's been proven.
Definitely not the same guy.
Yeah, totally not. Elias kind of, he came back at one point, and, he kind of showed his brother the ropes. We haven't seen Elias or his brother though, because Kevin Curtis, who's that? Kevin Owens murdered Ezekiel on Raw, so we haven't seen the entire. I think the entire family is just helping nurse Ezekiel back to health. So we haven't seen any of the Elias family in a while, which is really sad. I hope they can come back soon. As for Apollo Crews, like we talked about, he would just basically be enhancement talent until he got that big push with winning the United States Championships and Intercontinental Championships. He was Nigerian at one point, and then he wasn't, which NXT brought up, which I think is hilarious. And now he's in NXT, I say 2.0, but it might not be 2.0 anymore.
3.0.
Yeah, even though there's been like 4 versions of NXT, but whatever. He's in NXT 3.0, and he's doing. I think they could be using him better because I remember he came back and it immediately like started a loss. Again, that was because Vince was still taking things over when he went down to NXT, so his role didn't change all that much. But it looks like things are going to change for the better. As for Titus O'Neil, this would basically be like his last storyline in WWE was the Titus brand, because once that disbanded, he basically transitioned into the role he's in now, where he basically I don't even remember what's his role now. I don't even remember really.
He's a company ambassador.
Yeah, pretty much. And
poor tight ass.
Yeah, and then the biggest moment he would have the biggest moment in his career later. A year later, where he couldn't even get into the ring doing the greatest Royal Rumble. That's probably the best moment WWE's ever had in Saudi Arabia, was when he tripped getting into the ring. And
that'll live in infamy.
And he's an ambassador now, and he went into the Royal Award for the Hall of Fame. Next, I remember this happened. Enzo Amore comes out. This is at the time when he was the Cruiserweight champion. So you want to know why? There's a few big moments that happened on the show we didn't really realize until we watched it. It's not just the Shield reunion. So let's talk about this. So WWE, basically Enzo was a prick backstage. He got thrown off the tour bus by Roman Reigns. It's the only instance where you heard Roman Reigns not like somebody backstage. And, this basic Enzo Amore was not very well liked backstage. He didn't show any remorse when Big Cass got injured doing a match on Raw. He was just not very well liked backstage. So how did Vince solve the issue? Put him backstage more, because he put him on 205, which is terrible because he had to be backstage at 2 shows because 205 Live was taped at the time with SmackDown. What a talk about not solving the issue at all.
205 Live didn't matter.
And then, he was in the Cruiserweight division because they needed a role for him. And he beat Neville for the Cruiserweight Championship at No Mercy. And this is the show that Neville walked out on, if you remember. He was supposed, the lumberjack match that happens on this show, he was supposed to defend the belt against Neville and retain the championship. But Neville didn't want to do it, and he was just sick of his position in the company, because he basically, Neville single-handedly saved this Cruiserweight division, because this is when the Cruiserweight division was put on the show and basically was like the new Divas era, where they would just get no time at all and nobody cared about it. And we're going to talk about that because there's a match later on in the show where that proves that. So basically, they had to make a whole show around 205 Live. No one cared about that. And if you want proof, Chris, Steve, John, and I went to a SmackDown when 205 Live came on, like when they started taping it. I think it was live at the time, actually. The arena, basically, you want to talk about, everyone talks about AEW Rampage fans left doing that. Oh, this 205 Live at the time had nothing on, Rampage looked like it was, sold out compared to how 205 Live, that arena got
headed for the exits.
I think Steve said his whole section was empty. It was him, his family, and 2 other people that was in his section. It was bad. So then you know, it's not a good era for 205 Live. Vince just did not know what to do with it. It was just basically there to fill time on Raw. So Enzo Amore was the champion. So he came out, and there is a notable thing that happens on the rundown. I don't know if this made you remember this or not. This promo segment right here was the start of John's Enzo Amore impression, because this is the first time he ever did it.
Yep.
So it was really hilarious. So I think this is why we probably like this show more when we in real time, because this was the start of John's Enzo Amore impression. Like if you watch the rundown for it, he even gets up and he does the Enzo Amore like dance and everything like that too. Honestly, like if we talk about this, John's impression's so spot on. If you like closed your eyes and just watched our rundown and you didn't know it was us, you would actually believe that was Enzo Amore with John's impression. It's like one of the many impressions that John's had that's like stuck with the show. Not as famous as when he did Johnson, but
oh my god, it originally started out as Joseph.
Yeah, it did. But I think we really
we had to change the name. It was very offensive.
It was. So yeah, Enzo Amore comes out and he does his whole entrance. My name's Enzo Amore. I'm a certified G, a bona fide stud. I don't think he said you can't teach that, because that would be Big Cass's thing. But it was a little different. And he basically cuts a promo talking about how it's really tough to talk about, because sometimes when Enzo would cut these promos, he would go off sometimes, because he was clearly unscripted. He would go off on such a tangent, I think he'd lose the point of his promo sometimes, of what he was supposed to get over and everything. This is everyone was shitting on Enzo except maybe like Booker T. Not as much, but like Corey Graves hated on Enzo. I don't know if you remember this. This is when Corey Graves had that show for like a short period of time. It was kind of like what his After the Bell podcast is now, where he had this interview show where he interviewed people. And I think this was around the same time that interview, I don't know if you remember it, but that interview of him and Enzo got released with it. It was like really awkward and everything like that. Like that was not kayfabe, I don't think. Like you could just tell Corey Graves and Enzo Amore hated each other. But yeah, so Enzo Amore talked about how he wants to talk to Kurt Angle because he found an injustice that happened the previous week. This is when Kalisto joined the Cruiserweight division, and they had it in place where it was signed off that where whoever, if anybody in the division laid a hand on Enzo Amore, they would be fired and would lose all title opportunities. And Kalisto technically broke that agreement. I really don't think we talked about this at the time. Why the hell did Kurt Angle freaking sign off on that agreement? Because that just doesn't make any sense. He's a face GM and he's signing off on that agreement. It made no sense.
It didn't make it. Yeah.
I think I remember the reason he did it was just to get Enzo and leave him alone, but it just didn't make any sense. Because also they announced that Enzo was going to defend the title against Kalisto, TLC, so that's why he's also mad about it. So Kurt Angle comes out. There was a funny bit that happens where everyone's cheering Kurt Angle. No, where Kurt Angle acknowledges the crowd saying, welcome to the show, and Enzo says, wait, but they were just chanting you suck and now you're loving them or anything? That was actually a good line in all fairness.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
And Enzo says, he basically points us out to Kurt Angle, and the way they explain that storyline wasn't a very good explanation. Was the way they kind of described it doesn't really, because it sounds like the cruiserweight. Because I think this had to do with the way Enzo and Kurt described it. They made it just the way they described this was they made it sound like the cruiserweight signed off on this, and Kurt had signed off on it. But how it actually was meant was whoever was signed in the cruiserweight division couldn't sign the title match. But that's not the way the segment came off at all. It made it sound like that the cruiserweights agreed to not basically forfeit the title shots. It didn't make any sense. But Kurt Angle mentions that since Kurt Angle had signed Kalisto to the Cruiserweight division after he'd already made this declaration, it didn't apply to Kalisto. Which that doesn't make any sense either, because Kalisto had already been signed to a WWE contract anyways, so that didn't even make any sense. So like if you're signed to I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. Like if Nigel, because this is at the time when Nigel started commentating 205. So if Nigel had put his hands on Enzo, would he have been fired? It doesn't really work. Like, is it? I don't even understand.
I would have fired his ass.
So basically, Enzo says he doesn't want to do the match. So Kurt Angle says, you know what? No, basically Enzo says that he's not happy. And you're not going to like it if I'm not happy. And Kurt Angle says, you know what? I want to make you happy. So don't worry about the match with Kalisto at TLC. And Enzo's all happy about this. And he says, because you're going to defend the Cruiserweight Championship tonight against against himself. No, against against Kalisto. And obviously, Enzo's not happy about this, but he only agrees to do the match if it's the main event. And that was the start of John's impression, because right when I went to say that in the show, I remember, that's when John starts the Enzo impression. And Kurt Angle leaves, and then he announces that it's going to be a lumberjack match, because for one night only, he's lifting the ban of where the cruiserweights can't lay a hand on Enzo and everything, which, I don't really like lumberjack matches, so I wasn't really looking forward to seeing that. But a decent promo segment here. If you probably just watch it, like if you don't really know what was going on at the time, but boy, did this bring back so many bad memories at the time of how much of a dick Enzo was and everything. The only good memory it brought up was the shot of John's Enzo Amore impression. So I give the segment like a thumb down. Also, Kurt Angle, because he was scripted, kept screwing up his lines and everything.
Oh yeah.
Too. So, what do you think of this segment?
It was okay. It set up a match that's for the main event.
Yeah.
Nothing really much. It was okay.
Next was Braun Strowman versus Matt Hardy. This was Braun Strowman's kind of going into a babyface. He was still a heel, but the fans would definitely reacted to Strowman more so. He would be a babyface not that long after this. Matt Hardy was on his own because Jeff Hardy just had surgery. And this would lead to Jeff Hardy relapsing again, of course, because he was bored, I guess. Just go listen to Afro Man's Because I Got High video. That's Jeff Hardy's career in a nutshell. So,
it's
honestly, it really is.
It's so true.
This is when, Matt Hardy was slowly about to become the broken gimmick that everybody wanted, and slash what would become the woken gimmick, because they were talking about how Matt Hardy didn't seem all that right. Like not long after that, he'd become woken. So it led to this match. Not all that impressive. It was essentially a squash match because Matt Hardy couldn't do any offense because Strowman was a big boy. Braun Strowman won with a running power slam fairly easily. I don't think Matt got any offense in. He never knocked him off his feet.
Hardly. He hit a twist of feet.
Oh yeah, and Braun Strowman.
And they made a big deal about it. Like that was the most devastating finishing move in the history of wrestling.
Yeah. And then after Strowman won with the running power slam, he went to carry Matt Hardy backstage and I don't even know what he was going to do to him. Just do something. I don't know what. And then the Shield come out to the stage. And they made a point that because this was at the time when Braun Strowman was feuding with Roman Reigns, and they had singles matches with Ambrose versus Strowman and Rollins versus Strowman, where Strowman laid them out, and they beat down Strowman 3-on-1 and triple powerbombed him through the announcers table. Strowman did put up somewhat of a fight. I like there was one bit where he just immediately pushes Reigns into the stage and setup and everything.
Yeah.
Which Reigns snow-sold. He just freaking speared him anyways and everything. It was kind of funny. Good segment here. The only thing I don't understand about it was if you were trying to get the Shield over his faces, this was not a good way to do it because it was 3 baby faces beating up a heel. and so I don't know. It did do the. It did set up what was going to happen later in the show, but good. I give that match between Strowman and Matt Hardy like 2 3/4 stars. It's probably like the best match of the whole show, which is saying a lot. Which is surprising because one of the matches on the show I thought was going to be a lot better. But yeah, so Strowman wins. No, Strowman, and yeah, decent little segment here. Again, it was really, if you want to see the Shield back together, and this is when the Shield came out to that T-shirt that you have on too.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this?
The match was so-so. The beatdown of Braun Strowman, amazing. That's what Michael Cole called the Shield Bomb, and I wanted to end my life because it's the worst fucking name I've heard in my life.
Yeah.
But it was really good.
Yep. And then afterwards, the Shield cut a promo backstage to get interviewed by Charlie Caruso. Oh, I forgot to. If you want to, Braun Strowman, we'll talk about later in the show. Matt Hardy, go watch our SummerSlam 2003 review if you want to know where he is, because not a lot's changed in his career since then. The only difference is it looks like he's going to be pairing back up with Private Party. I think, I don't know. They haven't talked about that recently. So, then the Shield's backstage. They get interviewed by Charlie Caruso. And they talk about how they're happy to be back together. And Dean Ambrose makes the mistake and says that they're going to fight everyone, whether it's one people, or whether it's one person, 3 people, 5 people, all that type of stuff. Boy, should Ambrose not have said that.
No, he shouldn't have.
And afterwards, they all leave, and they say that this is their yard and everything. And it's Seth Rollins this time that says "believe that," because usually that was Roman Reigns' catchphrase, but this time Seth Rollins said it. So, yeah, good backstage promo segment here. The only thing I want to change about it was because we never got this again. I wish they would have done the promos. I mean, I think they do it later on when they reform, where they did the promo segment where they would just hold the camera instead. I feel like that should have been the segment instead because that was much better. But what do you think of this backstage segment?
I thought it was really good. Again, it set up the match, and
yeah,
all you can ask for. It was good. I liked it.
I want to talk about because I feel like I failed to mention this. Because everyone boy, does Dean Ambrose look so much different back then than he does now.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell like he went to the gym and worked out and everything. This is right before. Yeah, this was basically his last, like, I would say, good one as Dean Ambrose, pretty much, too. I know we're going to talk about it when we talk about the career retrospectives. And this was right before his injury and everything. And yeah, he just looked he just looked good. So, next, Mickie James comes out to cut a promo, and I forgot this was a thing.
Yeah.
The promo was good, but unfortunately, the scripting wasn't the best. So she comes out and talks. This was when she was feuding with Alexa Bliss, and they were doing a storyline at the time where Mickie James was old. So that was the storyline. How she was old, huh?
She was decrepit.
Yeah. Let's talk about this though. Mickie James was 38 when this storyline happened. 38. Yeah, apparently. I understand that a little bit because no real woman in the business lasts that long. Usually they retire about in their 30s anyways. But this is just ridiculous. Like, it's like, this is definitely a Vince storyline. It's like he thinks 38's old for a woman for some reason. I feel bad for Mickie James because she's had to do a lot of crappy storylines. This storyline and then obviously the weight storyline. Like, no wonder honestly, if she never went back to WWE again, especially with how she got released and everything, I really wouldn't blame her because she got put in some shit.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with Triple H taking over and everything, that could very well happen. But Mickie James talks about how she respects Alexa Bliss as Raw Women's Champion, but she talked about how Alexa Bliss would act one way towards her, but say other things behind her back and everything like that. And she says she's going to win the Raw Women's Championship and become a 7-time Women's Champion, which she does become a 7-time Women's Champion, just not with the Raw Women's Championship. Actually, wait, I don't think that's counting the belts that she had outside the company, actually, so never mind. Because I forget, Vince does the Men in Black thing, where whatever you did outside of WWE doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
remember that was like her big return, too? Like, they've acted like she never wrestled for like 7 years or whatever. It was really funny.
But she didn't.
Yeah. And Alexa Bliss comes out. She acts very sincere and apologizes to Mickie James for saying all these old comments. And this was at that time. I don't think it was like quite to the annoying levels where Alexa Bliss would do this a lot. She would pretend to be like a very sincere baby face and would turn it around and act like a heel. This is like, it wasn't annoying yet. I would say like this was getting to the point where like it was getting to be annoying though.
Yeah.
Say that again.
It was the fake sincerity.
Yeah, this is why WWE was really doing that a lot too.
A ton.
Yeah. And so they play this footage, which is they show a tribute to Mickie James, and it's like this black and white 1960s video, and it's so bad because, like, honestly, Vince is making his audience feels like the woe because a lot of this stuff that happened, because they try to make it seem like no one's gonna know who Mickie James is. We were like young at this time, like we were like 11 years old, and I was like in my 20s when this. Well, I'm still in my 20s, but I like turned 21. You were probably like 23, 24 when this thing aired. Like he's making, like how old? Like honestly, like this is why the storyline's bad. He's not just making like Mickie James feel old. He's making his audience feel old. That are like in their 20s. Like it's like
stupid. It got a laugh out of me though.
So, Alexa Bliss got a laugh out of it, and basically the rest of the segment's just a bunch of old references. Mickie James says, "Oh, my healings have hard," so she just basically goads Alexa Bliss to go to the ring, and Alexa Bliss goes to go to the ring, and she says, "No, we're gonna save the match for TLC, and I'll send you like a video of it or something like that." And obviously, I don't even think it was a video. I think she said like you could subscribe to the WWE Network, and she said, "Oh, but in your case, I gotta send you like a VHS tape." It's like, what do you like? Alexa Bliss was even around for VHS tape, so you're making Alexa Bliss even feel old. Like,
it.
And basically, it's the typical here thing where they don't want to fight the baby faces and everything, so they back down. And then afterward,
old.
And then afterwards, Mickie James would get interviewed about it. And the biggest thing that they would talk about, how it was Alexa Bliss that brought Mickie James back to WWE because this was when she was like that La Luchadora gimmick or whatever. And she like aligned herself with Alexa Bliss, which didn't make sense because they talked about that. But yet she had a match at like NXT like not long before that. So it was like, oh, this... Believe it or not, too, this isn't even the worst thing that happens on this show. That's coming like in a couple of minutes. But this was terrible. Mickie James. The only thing that's really worth watching the segment for is Mickie James' promo, because I forgot what the storyline was about. But the second Alexa Bliss came out, I remembered, and I was like, "Oh shit, this sucks." Then, so it's just terrible. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it was like it wasn't good. But I got a laugh out of that old timers joke. But yeah, like it is. It's just it's not. It wasn't over.
Yeah. If you wonder what happens too, they have the match at TLC. It ended up being like a really good match too, where Alexa Bliss would win and then she'd win again on like Raw and retain the title. Believe it or not, not even like in February of 2018, like 4 months later, they'd be like a tag team together and like an alliance together. Not good storytelling at all. And then, Mickie James would stick with the company. She ended up getting an injury. And then basically she led through the pandemic era, didn't get utilized all the while. There was that match on Raw, I don't know if you remember, where they didn't even like focus on her return. It was like about Seth Rollins and Samoa Joe's thing that happened. and then she got released in like 2021. And basically, that was that infamous thing where they sent her all in wind gear and like a trash bag and everything. And that guy got fired because of that, which good. He deserved that. And then Mickey James has been tearing it up in Impact and NWA and everything, mainly Impact. And it looks like she's retiring soon because they're doing a storyline on Impact where if she loses another match, she's going to retire. So I kind of wanted to retire in WWE, but we have to wait and see if that happens. And she actually, there was one big thing that happened that Mickey James did this year, where she showed up as an Impact contracted superstar with the Knockouts Championship in the Royal Rumble match earlier this year.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then as for Alexa Bliss, she would use fairly well as the Raw Women's Champion and everything. She would last till WrestleMania 34 with the title, where she dropped it. And basically, she was kind of out of action for a while because all of her injuries that she had caught up to her. She had a ton of concussions and everything, so she didn't. She basically didn't wrestle for like a year, and then she returned, won the women's tag team titles a couple of times with Nikki Cross, and then she aligned herself with Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. That started out really well, and then once Bray Wyatt left the company, it got really bad. With really bad, like one of the worst segments, worst characters ever. She retired. No, she didn't retire. She took some time off. They did a segment where she went to like counseling and everything, and it really didn't lead to anything. We really didn't. And then now she like is a mix of like this gimmick that she has now. But she still has the Lily. Actually, she stopped coming out with the Lily doll recently, right?
Yeah, recently, so yeah.
Fairly recently. The biggest thing that sucks about Alexa Bliss now is her theme music is probably like the worst theme music in professional wrestling today. It's really bad. Then it showed a vignette for Asuka. This was her coming to the main roster. She was going to be debuting at TLC. And this was like one of the only times where Vince talked about NXT because they talked about her undefeated streak because that was a thing. This is when they did that stupid thing where they had to vacate the NXT Women's Championship without being beaten. So there you go. So then Kurt Angle and the Boston Hug Connection are backstage. And this is when the Sasha Banks and Bayley were like an on-again, off-again tag team. They keep teasing a storyline between them, and then it just never happened. It didn't happen until the pandemic, believe it or not. And they even watched it during the pandemic. And they both wanted to have a match with Asuka because it was like a dream match that we never really got. And then Alicia Fox came up and says that she doesn't think it's fair that they're getting all the opportunities, and she has this terrible acting where she's like whining about it. It's so bad, like Kurt Angle, I think, wants to like remove himself from the room from this. Like that's how bad this is. I think Kurt Angle wanted to be like anywhere else but in this room. Dana Brooke came in. I don't even know. She was clearly a babyface at this time, and I don't know if this was right around the time she joined up with Titus Worldwide, and she wanted to face Asuka. Then Emma came in, and she wanted to face Asuka because she started the Women's Revolution. Did you know? This is when they were doing that.
No way.
Remember they were doing this storyline where they kept talking about it and everything like that?
Yeah.
So she wanted to face Asuka. So Kurt Angle made a fatal 5-way match where the winner would face Asuka at TLC. I like the concept of the match because it got over Asuka and everything like that. But boy, was this segment not good at all. Like, you could just tell Kurt Angle was not feeling this segment. He wanted to get this segment over with as quickly as possible. I do love when there's this bit, by the way, where Kurt Angle's like, you can just tell by the tone of his voice, he's just like annoyed to have to be in this segment. It's really funny, actually. What do you think of the Asuka vignette and the backstage segment?
Yeah, I mean the backstage segment sucked, but the Asuka bit was it was nice. It really showcased her as being a dominant champion in NXT that she couldn't be beaten. Yeah. And that segment sucked with the women. So
Then we had the first of two cruiserweight matches. It was Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali versus the Brian Kendrick and Gentleman Jack Gallagher. I forgot this match was even a thing. So basically, if you've seen a cruiserweight match on Raw in 2017 that didn't involve Neville, it was always put in like the worst possible place on the show. Nobody cared about it. The crowd was very dead around this time. We were at least past the point where they would change the ring ropes. At least that was good.
Yeah.
And this feud stems. This is at that time where the Brian Kendrick and Gentleman Jack Gallagher were like feuding, and Jack Gallagher joined up with the Brian Kendrick and basically became the gimmick. Maybe not a gimmick, knowing what we know about him now, where he was like a vicious, wrestler, and he was tag team with the Brian Kendrick, and they were feuding with Cedric Alexander. They had just done a match on 205 Live where Cedric Alexander basically took both of them out and everything. And they had a match here. It was really weird they threw Mustafa Ali as the partner, though, because even though it's not random nowadays, because they're like really good friends and everything.
Yeah.
It's at the time where like he was teaming up with Rich Swann a lot, and they didn't go with them as a tag team. Not much of a match here. It was really short, really rushed. It didn't even get a commercial break or anything. I don't even think the match went past 5 minutes.
No.
Kendrick and Gallagher get the heat for a while, and the Brian Kendrick, and then eventually Mustafa Ali gets the hot tag. And this was at the time where like Mustafa Ali, like you have to look at the win gimmick. His attire was like he was like in this Cruiserweight Classic days. It was really weird. This is when Mustafa Ali didn't really have much of a character or anything like that either.
He didn't. It was just like, I'm a babyface.
Yeah. And Kendrick had a nice moment in the match where like he did a roll up and he like a takedown into a roll up. That was cool. And then eventually Kendrick hits a slice blade number 2. Actually, no, it's number 1 because I'd be outside the ring. On to Kendrick. No, onto Mustafa Ali. I don't even think he could hit it on himself. That's not even possible. Kendrick hit it on. Kendrick hit it on Ali, and Kendrick and Gallagher got the win. I guess that did make sense because you just had them turn heel and everything, so they had to get a win here. But it really didn't matter. Honestly, nobody cared. So like, it really didn't matter. Even though this was further in the storyline, just nobody cared. So it really didn't matter at this time. This is when like they really weren't even utilizing Cedric Alexander to his potential, and they're still kind of not now. Where like he was in the division and he wasn't fighting for the championship or anything. Yeah. Like he would always like, I don't know, he got injured, fair enough, but like he was in like this storyline wasn't terrible necessarily, but he was in like storylines that didn't even make sense for him to be in or anything.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I give the match like 2 3/4 stars because the one thing you can say about the guys in the division, they tried to make the most out of their TV time. They just weren't given much of a spot.
The 3 minutes that they got.
Yeah. So what do you think of this match and everything?
I thought it was a good match. Again, like I like the tag team of Cedric and Mustafa, but yeah, it was good.
As for where this went, they would continue this feud with Cedric Alexander, the Brian Kendrick, and Jack Gallagher. Eventually, Rich Swann would end up teaming up with them when they had a match at TLC that was really good, and they would win that match, and then they win like a tornado tag match on 205 Live. Can't bother putting that on Raw. Cedric Alexander basically was like the first cruiserweight champion under like Triple H's direction of the division. Was like the face of the division. Then he would get called up to the main roster. They did nothing with him. Paul Heyman tried his best to get him over, but Vince and Heyman just couldn't agree on it. So obviously, because it's Vince's company at the time, he got his way. So Cedric Alexander basically went from like fighting AJ Styles to jobbing out to Riddick Moss for the 24/7 championship, like on Raw. I mean, not as bad as Ricochet when he fought for the WWE title and they couldn't even. and then got jobbed out by Riddick Moss. It's not that bad, but still pretty bad. And then they put Cedric Alexander and Ricochet together as a tag team. And I think the big running joke was there was 2 Paul Heyman guys that Heyman tried to get over, but Vince wasn't having it. That was like a big joke at the time online and everything. And then Cedric Alexander turned heel and joined the Hurt Business. And it was going really well, and then it randomly broke up out of nowhere on Raw. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin team up, and they would put the Hurt Business back together on occasions, and then like nothing happened. And then when Shelton Benjamin went out due to an injury, he did his own thing as a babyface, and now he's teaming up with Mustafa Ali, and are doing decently well together. They need to put them on TV more, because I honestly think I'm not saying they could beat the Usos or anything, but they could honestly be like a one pay-per-view challenger for the Usos if they really wanted to. As for Mustafa Ali, basically his career kind of ended the same as Cedric's. He became like a staple point of the 205 Live division. Which he basically took Rich Swan's place when he got released. He basically became like the heart and soul of the division. I think that's kind of like what started the friendship backstage with him and Cedric Alexander and everything. And then he got called up to the main roster, and boy, talk about a disappointing career, because he was meant to have everything. He was gonna, I think, beat Daniel Bryan and everything like that for the WWE title at WrestleMania. But one injury led to Kofi Mania and everything. And then he was part of Retribution, the leader of Retribution. Was supposed to be he was the SmackDown hacker actually, but they dropped the gimmick because he wanted to work with Heyman. But Heyman got. Right when he got to work with Heyman, they put him out of. That's just hilarious how that happened. Heyman was out of the leader, head director of Raw and everything, and he was the leader of Retribution. That was a terrible faction that we'll talk about some other time, maybe not. And then he got relegated to main event, and he wanted to leave the company. They talked him somehow into staying. He got a little bit of a push facing Theory for the U.S. title. It wasn't much of a push, though. They jobbed him out every opportunity that they could before he even faced Theory for the belt. And then basically now he's teaming up with Cedric Alexander. And as for the Brian Kendrick, he basically would just finish his career in 205 Live. He would become like a head writer and head producer backstage for SmackDown and retired from the ring. Then he requested his release. He was supposed to face Jon Moxley on Dynamite the same day he asked for his release. But let's just say some controversial stuff came out about Brian Kendrick that basically ousted him from the wrestling business in general. And then as for Jack Gallagher, same thing. He basically was ousted from the Speaking Out movement he ousted from the Speaking Out movement. Yeah, that makes sense. He was ousted from the wrestling business due to the Speaking Out movement. So there you go. Then it showed Heritage Month because they did Hispanic Heritage Month at the time, and they showed one of the big commentators that's Spanish in the soccer league, but I don't watch sports, so I'm not wasting my time talking about that. Then Kurt Angle's backstage. The Miz was suddenly fine now. He's still holding his neck, but all of a sudden he's suddenly recovered from his injuries and everything. Came in and basically you thought he was going to ask for the match to be called off at TLC, and Kurt Angle says the match is still on as is. And the Miz says, no, I think the match is going to be awesome, but I want to add to the match. And Kurt Angle's like, so you want to find a new partner? Well, that's not going to happen. But the Miz talks Kurt Angle into it by mentioning the fact that Dean Ambrose said earlier in this show that he was willing to fight anybody. So don't you want to hold? You talk about how you're a man of integrity and everything. Don't you want to make sure Dean Ambrose sticks to that? So this makes Kurt Angle agree. Again, it made no sense that Kurt Angle would agree to this, but he did. Kurt Angle allows him to find another partner, and the Miz says, I already have. And it cuts to a door that's in the office. And I think Strowman missed his cue or something like that. It cuts to this door, and it like he doesn't come in for like 5 seconds, so like it's like a long enough pause, but he missed his cue. So Strowman comes in, and basically it's announced that now Strowman's going to be his tag team partner. So, like decent backstage segment here. It just didn't make any sense. Like, why could Angle agree to this other than the fact that he was goaded into it? So, what do you think of this backstage segment here?
I thought it was good, regardless of what like happened and whatnot. I thought it was still good.
And since we're talking about this now, as for where everybody went, so yeah, it was announced at TLC. It was supposed to be the Shield versus The Miz, The Bar, and Braun Strowman. That match would change again, though, because the next week on Raw, Kane would be added to the match. So then it was like a 5-on-3 match. And then I remember we were doing the show this day. We were going to do predictions. I think you and John were supposed to face off for the title and everything. And we had to call off that like predictions league because this is when it got released that like we didn't even know what the card of TLC was going to look like because we found out that everyone was getting the mumps at this time. And I think we knew how the mumps got passed around. JoJo, I think, had the mumps because she was off TV. Then Bo Dallas was off TV. And then it was released like that day. I remember because me. I don't know how I mixed up you, Steve's name with my name. John, James, and I were all hanging out. And it was released that day that Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt suffered the mumps, which we're going to talk about Bray Wyatt. That ends up being a blessing in disguise. So they had to pull out of their matches. So instead, they replaced Kurt Angle with Roman Reigns. And Kurt Angle became like an honorary member of the Shield that night. So it was like, honestly, this pay-per-view card, no joke, changed almost as much as the WrestleMania 36 card, like during the pandemic. That's how much it changed. Like, that's like the closest we've had to like a pay-per-view card changing. It was like two of the top matches too that was like selling this pay-per-view too. So yeah, and unfortunately, as good as well, even though we're doing the show, the Shield reunion really wasn't all that successful in 2017 because Reigns got sick, and then right when they came back together again, Ambrose got hurt, so they had to pull it again. And then basically by the time Ambrose came back, they had to do like another. They basically just did another reunion all over.
Yeah,
and everything like that. And then right when they did the reunion again, Roman Reigns got his cancer relapse and everything. So then he was gone, and then when they basically did another reunion, I think to try to get Dean Ambrose to stay with WWE. This was after like his failed heel run and everything like that. Yeah, pretty much. If you think about it too, pretty much, I think this was like the last time. It might have been before this that Dean Ambrose was like happy working with WWE. Like you could, if you watch his promo segments here, you can tell like there's a change when he comes back in 2018 later on because he was going.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, I think you talked about this with me at the time. Remember they released his Chronicle at the time, and it was like a really weird Chronicle. Like he was acting very weird, like doing his Chronicle. And now we know why he was acting so weird because he wanted to be, he wanted to leave.
He wanted to leave.
And yeah, pretty much it was his last big run. And it might be the Shield's last run together ever because unless Dean Ambrose leaves AEW to go to WWE, but even though Triple H is taking over, I think Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley is finishing his career in AEW. They're going to have to do something big. Like either AEW is going to have to fold or AEW is going to have to, like we talked about, if AEW is backstage, then doesn't improve. He's finishing his career in AEW, I think. I think he's just so loyal to the company, and he's like such the heart and soul of AEW. I just don't see him leaving and never reforming the Shield. The only way the Shield can reform is like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns would have to leave WWE for AEW, and I don't think that's going to happen either. Like Seth and Roman are such. Basically, it's the same thing with why I don't think Jon Moxley is going to leave AEW. So, Um, yeah, as for like where everyone like went after the Shield split, John Moxley would go on to AEW and be like basically a staple point for AEW. Like I talked about yesterday, just go watch AEW Spark. I talk about it all there. Roman Reigns, honestly became, believe it or not, was like the number one babyface when he came back from when his cancer went into remission and everything. And they were like afraid to put him in the title picture though, because they knew he would get a negative reaction. And right when I think the fans were going to accept him being in the title picture, COVID hit, and he basically he didn't want to be a part of WrestleMania because he couldn't afford to catch COVID because Rollins would probably have died if he got COVID. And believe it or not, the one good thing that came out of COVID is we got the tribal chief. Because I still say to this day, had COVID not hit, Roman Reigns never would have turned heel. I think that's definitely pretty obvious. And now Roman Reigns is like the number one wrestler in the world. As the tribal chief, he's held the WWE Universal Championship for over 2 years, and he's like been like the best he's ever been. Like it really sucks. It really sucks though. They wait, even though they turned him. I think it was too little, too late type of thing. Still to this day, because they should have turned him a long time ago. Better late than never. The one good thing is at least they did it in the pandemic, I guess, because I feel like if it got exactly what it should have because they were able to control the crowd.
They could get that was good.
And then as for Seth Rollins, he would go on to win the Royal Rumble. I think the next year actually. No, it was 2018 was like the year of Rollins when he was just having this spectacular performances. And then he'd win the Rumble in 2019. And honestly, he probably won the Rumble the year. He probably got the Universal title too late. He probably should have gotten it in 2018. Because honestly, had he got it then, I don't think his 2019 one would have been what it was. Because there was no Fiend who ruined his babyface run or anything like that. And then they had to turn him heel pretty much because he was basically getting Roman Reigns levels of reactions. His reactions were so bad that him and Reigns had a match on the draft episode of SmackDown, and he was getting booed like Roman Reigns levels more than Roman Reigns. It was that bad. And then he turned heel. He basically became the Monday Night SmackDown. No, the Monday Night Messiah / the SmackDown Savior or whatever it was. Gouging people's eyes out and everything like that. What a weirdo he was. And then he now he's like a mixture of the Monday Night Messiah. What's the gimmick that he had? That Monday Night Messiah like architect gimmick. He's basically like a mixture of that now. And he's probably having like the best run of his career right now. So there you go. Oh my gosh, we gotta talk about this. So I'm gonna tell you a little story here. I'm like, wait a minute. Please don't tell me this is the show where that segment takes place. And then I watched like the WWE Now thing that they do when they preview the show. And I saw like Kathy Kelly previewed because she was doing the previews at the time. Like Raw, and I thought the segment had already happened. So I forgot they did a segment the week before where they were questioning whether that was going to happen. And I was like, yeah, and we're going to see the segment again. Oh boy, was I wrong. This segment was questioning whether or not Sister Abigail was alive. So let's talk about this storyline. And remember how I said this is not the worst, the Mickey James segment isn't the worst segment? Boy, are you guys in for a treat.
Yes, you are.
So Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt were feuding at this time. It's a feud I think everybody wanted because it was like Demon versus Eater of Worlds. It's a feud everybody wanted. It's like a feud everyone like fantasy booked and everything. And honestly, I think we voted this as like the worst storyline of the year. And let me talk about what storylines this went up against at the time. Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt doing like the House of Horrors hologram things at the time. Randy Orton, Jinder Mahal when Jinder Mahal got the belts. And I'm trying to remember what else this went up against. It was like something else that was bad on that. But those storylines were really, really bad. Like, really bad. Like, and honestly, if you put those two storylines with this, and like, that makes those storylines look like masterpieces compared to this storyline. So let's talk about this story. Let's admit, the feud started off okay. It took a while for it to get going, though, because, like, they started feuding, but then they randomly had, like, Finn Balor feud with, like, Elias, because I think they wanted to hold off the match to, like, SummerSlam. And then, but then they just did the match on Raw anyways, where Finn Balor fought him as the man, Finn Balor. And then they fought him as the demon, and they beat him at SummerSlam, and we're like, okay. You know, because Finn Balor had just come back from his injury. They wanted to do this feud. Now that this feud's over at SummerSlam, now Finn Balor can kind of move on, maybe fight for the IC title or something. They continued the feud to No Mercy, where, believe it or not, Finn Balor was like obsessed. Bray Wyatt was obsessed with face paint. He was like, I want you to fight me as the man, Finn. He was like, he wiped off Goldust's face paint, and it was really hilarious because Goldust fought Bray Wyatt one time as like Dustin Rhodes, but he was still in like the Goldust gimmick, except he just had no face paint on him. It was really weird.
It was Dustin Rhodes.
And then, but he came out to like the Goldust theme music and everything like that too. And it was at that weird stint where like sometimes Goldust would be a babyface and sometimes he'd be a heel. Because I remember one time he was like, Finn Balor was like fighting in his honor. And like Goldust says, I don't need you to fight my honor. It's like one of those weird storylines that Vince always does where like the face gets mad at like the baby face for fighting for his honor. He's like obsessed with those He was like obsessed with those storylines.
Because they need the honor.
So then No Mercy came and Finn Balor beat Bray Wyatt as the man. So it was like, okay, the feud clearly has to be over. Bray Wyatt has not beaten Finn Balor one time. It has to be over. I remember we were watching that episode of Raw too. I remember John and I were talking in the group chat we had. And we're like, okay, because Finn Balor even cut a promo that night saying, now I want to go after the Universal Championship. And that's the match everybody wanted. And then my John's like, yeah, we're moving on from this. I remember, too, it was right after Finn Balor beat Goldust in a match. Like, Bray Wyatt's, like, hologram thing or whatever. Like, the entrance video that would play when the Bray Wyatt would come out plays. And all we heard, we didn't even hear Bray Wyatt. We heard, like, the person that would send, he's got the whole world in his hands. Because that's when they randomly brought that back for a spill. Boy, did we not know what that was going to lead to. And the instant that happened, John and I were like, fuck. Because we wanted the storyline to be over. And believe it or not, as bad as that storyline was, it wasn't like turn off the TV bad yet. This show right here changed all of that. Because Bray Wyatt was talking about how Sister Abigail was alive and everything. And it's like a storyline everybody had fantasy book. Like who Sister Abigail was going to be. Adam Blampe booking on What Culture and everything. I'm like, I don't think we liked the Adam Blampe one as much because it like didn't really make any sense or anything like that. I remember we kind of critiqued it a little bit. Boy, did that make Adam Blampe's like storyline look like a 5-star like storyline classic and everything. Because boy, did WWE we wondered who Sister Abigail was going to be. Let's talk about it. So Finn Balor comes out, and you can just instantly tell. By the way, Finn Balor, if you want to say it, the way he acts and everything under Vince's direction in WWE is like so different. He's so terrible under Vince's WWE. It's like Vince just did not know how to use him. It's like also too. I think I'm going to say this too. I don't think Vince ever got over the fact that Finn Balor got injured by accident when he was pushing him to the moon because you could. I don't know. It's just weird. It's Vince.
Yeah. If you know Vince, then yeah.
Yeah. So Finn Balor comes out and he says that there is no. He basically says that Bray Wyatt's just bullshit. There is no Sister Abigail. Bray Wyatt's just saying this because he realizes that he can get a hold over Finn Balor. Boy, was Finn Balor fucking won. So then, basically, he said that he's going to beat Bray Wyatt at TLC. And at this point, we were all annoyed, like, fuck, we don't want to see this match anymore. There's nothing different they can do. Then Bray Wyatt comes on the screen. And this is when the segment becomes like, honestly, I'm pretty sure we did our year-end awards. I think we voted this as like the worst segment of all year because it was so bad. He comes on the screen, and he's Bray Wyatt. He's eating words and everything. He's sitting in his rocking chair, which that didn't make sense because I think he had been burned by The Undertaker, so I don't understand why he just had his rocking chair back. He talks about Sister Abigail, how it's going to be a force never seen before by Finn Balor that he's never dealt with. And he talked about how he knew Sister Abigail when she was young, and he saw her die pretty much and get burned in the fire, which that doesn't even make any sense because Sister Abigail, I think by continuity, got burned by Randy Orton earlier that year, so I don't understand what was going on there. That's a different storyline in of itself. And he says that when she takes over, you become a different person. So I'm like, okay, so I don't know where that's happening there. And then Bray Wyatt, like, they did this editing trick where his face, like, twisted. And, like, there was, like, a hologram of, like, Bray Wyatt, like, dressed in drag. And it was meant to be, like, Sister Abigail's, like, spirit took over Bray Wyatt's.
Yeah, that was so...
And, like, the edit of it was, like, really bad because the voiceover they did, I think, was meant to be, like, Bray Wyatt, but, like, his voice sounded high-pitched, so it was meant to be Sister Abigail. But, like, they didn't really do a good job editing this voiceover because sometimes you'd hear, like, Bray Wyatt, like, talking as himself as the voiceover was going on. It was, like, really bizarre.
Yeah, it was.
And Sister Abigail starts talking. And, this is just such bullshit. She talks about how it's such a bad segment. You really just can't remember. It's so hard to remember exactly what she said word for word. She talked about how she's like a powerful force. And she talks about how all you men are all alike. You want to be powerful, but Bray's different. He lets me take over him and everything like that. So, yeah, we're talking about feminism. What a great thing to talk about in professional wrestling. Which is weird because Vince isn't even a feminist, I don't think. So that's funny how we hear him say that, putting that into a storyline. And she talks about how Bray protected her. She's always protected Bray in moments of weakness when he was young and everything like that. Which, again, that doesn't make sense because Sister Abigail... How can that happen if Sister Abigail is meant to be younger than Bray Wyatt? Because he literally just said in his promo that he saw Sister Abigail die. So I don't understand what that even means. But the way she made it sound like, she did it when Bray Wyatt was young, like a young kid and everything like that.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
And then she talked about how she's gonna turn. If Finn Balor even thinks about bringing the demon out, he's gonna make the demon seem like a sunset rose or something like that. It was such a bad scripted promo, and honestly, I really just can't even talk about this because it's like it's one of those segments you have to watch because it was one of those. This was also during that time frame where Bray Wyatt would cut promos and you wouldn't even know what he was saying half of the time either. Like,
yeah,
this was so terrible, and like Finn Balor had this look on his face where he was meant to be scared, but I think it was like Finn Balor had this look on his face like this is like he didn't want to be a part of this. Like this was terrible. Like honestly, I think he was looking at this. He probably knew that this was going to be terrible, but I think once he saw this, I don't think he realized how terrible that it was truly going to be. I feel so bad that like Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt had to be a part of this, especially Finn Balor, who was like being booked to shit at this time.
Yeah, easily.
This was awful. I can't believe I had to talk about this again. Like, so terrible, and I'm just gonna talk about it now. Thank God this never happened, because oh my gosh, because it led to the segment the next week. Oh, I remember too. They did a reference to Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, and I think that's one of those occasions where WWE was getting back at me because I just watched that movie like that day, and it was such a terrible movie, and WWE just had to throw shit like that in there. It's like, yeah, you want to play these games, WWE? We're not playing these games. Oh, it was just awful.
It was really, really bad.
It's honestly, this was like when we were having segments too, like Moment of Bliss. No, Moment of Bliss. What was it called? That Bailey, This Is Your Life segment. We were having segments like where Randy Orton was burning down Sister Abigail's house. Like, honestly, like this segment is so bad, it even overtakes that. Like, oh,
Pretty bad.
like, I don't want to talk. What do you want to give your thoughts on it? This segment's just terrible.
Okay, so Bray Wyatt in drag, not a good idea. The voiceover was creepy, and yeah, it sucked. Might have been the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. You had to see Katie Vick when you were growing up too, so I want you to talk about. That's gonna be a retro.
I'd rather watch Triple H fucking a dummy than watching Sister Abigail ever again.
Believe it or not, they did a segment that was almost as bad the next week, where Finn Balor was like the Pumpkin Demon, and they did like this terrible like 3D effects. Where he was like,
that was awful. The best thing that ever happened was Bray Wyatt getting the mumps.
I know, because can you imagine what would have happened had this match been able to go ahead? Because think about what we got out of it too. We got Finn Balor versus AJ Styles out of it too. Like,
you kidding me? You didn't want to see Sister Abigail versus the Demon? Pumpkin Demon? An all-time classic wrestling match.
Yeah. As for where both competitors went, Finn Balor would continuously to be used like shit up until his NXT run. I think it became a running joke that Finn Balor would like always be like the opening part of the show too.
It's like Mr. 820 or something like that, or 825.
And he was having like these terrible feuds with like Bray Wyatt, Baron Corbin, and like Bobby Lashley at this.
Wasn't his feud with like Baron Corbin like he was short or something like that?
Yeah.
He had like a little playhouse that he would sleep in for some reason. I still
remember though the Baron Corbin thing. One thing I love when he got his playhouse. If you follow him on Finn Balor on Instagram, the funny thing that he would do was he always posts this hilarious things. He was like inside the playhouse, like taking pictures, like in the play. Do you remember after this too? He was supposed to face Brock Lesnar for the Universal title, like at Royal Rumble, and Vince didn't want to do it because he claimed he wasn't over. So Finn Balor would do like these Instagram posts and tweets referencing life events where like he wasn't over. Like I can't flip over this burger on the grill because I'm not over. Like it was hilarious.
That was so funny. I forgot about that.
And then Finn Balor finally started being used better when he went to NXT and turned heel, and he was being used great. He got called up to the main roster again, and he had all the momentum in the world. And I remember how you talk about it's. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result. Vince screwed him up again when he called him up. Like he was basically in the same spot again when he got caught up again. He was back in the opener and everything like that too. I'd say now Finn's being used like really well. He joined Judgment Day, and the second Triple H took over, Judgment Day is like the top faction on Raw right now. So, I mean, it took a while. Thank God that Triple H did take over, because I have a feeling Judgment Day wouldn't be a thing right now. Because I think Vince was ready to give up on that when Finn joined the group. Because if you remember, they didn't show up for like a month. Once Finn joined the group, they were gone for like a month.
They were retribution.
Yeah, and if you remember, I remember too. They had a match with the Mysterios on main event. I told you about this, and they couldn't even beat the Mysterios on main event. They lost by a DQ, and they didn't even lay him out or anything on main event. Like that just shows you what Vince thought of Judgment Day once Finn joined the group. This segment was so bad, by the way. I want to talk about this. the next match, it flusters the commentary team. It flustered Corey Graves, and it flustered Michael Cole, and it flustered Booker T, where they didn't even know the rules to the match, to the very next match. That's how bad this segment was. It's so bad, too. The commentators have to, like, take this seriously, too. Like, I'm just talking about it now. Finn Balor later on in the show, he acts all scared and everything, and he says, "This is just something I've never seen before. I'm gonna have to do something unthinkable," and that's what led to the pumpkin like demon promo. And like the commentators have to act all distraught, like, what is Finn Balor gonna have to win out to
Halloween
win?
Finn Balor.
Yeah, like, oh, this was just awful. And I feel bad for the next ladies that had to compete in the very next match because the crowd did not care because I think they were just so aghast at what the hell they just saw.
Good either.
It's the Fatal 5-Way elimination match where the winner's going to face Asuka at TLC. It's Sasha Banks versus Emma versus Alicia Fox versus Dana Brooke versus Bayley. The match, this was also when WWE was in like fascinations of doing Fatal 5-Way matches on Raw, SmackDown, and 205, particularly 205. Every third week you'd see a Fatal 5-Way match. It was getting ridiculous at this point. I'm glad they've gotten back off that now, but it's like it was always Fatal 5-Way matches too. It was not Fatal 4-Ways. It's not 6-packs. It was always Fatal 5-Way matches. But yeah, the match was just randomly announced as a Fatal 5-Way match. No, as an elimination match. Kurt didn't say it was an elimination match.
Nope, he didn't.
And it was. I think that was. I wonder if that was a last minute change by Vince. I feel like that had to have been the case because
it was.
Because the commentators weren't even clued in. It's at one point they don't even know the rules. Somebody gets eliminated, and Michael Cole's like, I think he even says on commentary, "Oh, I got my notes wrong. It's actually an elimination match." I think he legit says that on commentary.
He does.
And
because he celebrated that someone won and they didn't.
Yeah. I remember in this match, they were talking about Asuka, and Booker T makes a few comments. He talks about first, I don't remember if it was this match. There's one point on this show where he talked about how Booker T mentions how he has like this experience being in the ring. And he says, you guys wouldn't understand this being in the ring. And Michael Cole legit has to call him out and says, Corey Graves has been a wrestler before, you know. Like, he completely forgot Corey Graves has ever wrestled before.
Instead of Michael Cole.
Yeah, and Michael Cole like didn't want to talk about that. But I remember at one point...
Tell me you're undefeated.
Yeah. But I remember at one point, he tries to make like some type of comparison about like Mike Tyson going to Japan and getting like knocked out in Japan or something like that. And it had like nothing to do with like Asuka going over to like TLC or anything, because TLC wasn't even going to be in Japan or anything.
Yeah,
like, it was such a off. It's like it was such a point. Even Michael Cole's like, so what does this have to do with the match at TLC? It's not in Japan. Like, honestly, like this just shows. I think that it was. I think that shows how bad that Sister Abigail segment was, because the commentators were so off during this match. And again, I think because Vince changed the format of the match the last minute, so it made everything off. So I was even thinking, I remember watching this match, because it's been a while since I've seen this match. I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be match of the night, right? Because all the talent in the match, except maybe like Alicia Fox and Dana Brooke at the time, because she was still not very green, which we'll talk about in a second. But you have Sasha Banks, you have Emma, you have Bayley, who could carry this match, and this could be like a hell of a match. Was I wrong about that? Yeah, the match starts out really weird because nobody does anything for like a minute. Like they just stand there. Which it wasn't one of those things where they just build anticipation, you gotta wait for it. Like legit, no one does anything.
They stared at each other.
And then everybody gets into a brawl except Emma because she was trying to stay out of it and everything. And then there was one scary spot. This is when Dana Brooke was still fairly new to the business. Like, she got caught up in NXT too early and everything. She hits, like, a power slam that nearly, like, obviously I know that she did now because I've seen but she nearly dropped Bayley, like, on her neck, breaking her neck. and she hits a leg drop and completely does not. She doesn't get where she was supposed to get. Let's just say that. The eliminations happen. Bailey hits the belly to belly onto Dana Brooke, and eliminates not. Yeah, it was Dana Brooke. Eliminates Dana Brooke. Sasha Banks and Bailey go at it for like a small window, and then if you want to know how badly WWE treated Bailey at this time, like legit, not even 5 minutes into the match, before the commercial break, Alicia Fox hits the scissors kick and eliminates Bailey. Like, if you want to know how badly WWE was treating Bailey at this time, this is obviously after like a babyface run was really flopping at this time. That just tells you everything you need to know right there.
Exactly.
So then it's down to Sasha Banks versus Alicia Fox and Emma. It's the typical thing where the heels try to work together, but eventually they implode. Sasha Banks eliminates Alicia Fox with the bank statement, makes her tap out. And, like, it's like they tried to protect Alicia Fox because they had her, like, not tap out for, like, she's in this hold for, like, a minute. So it's like, what are you protecting Alicia Fox for? It's not like you've ever tried to go out of your way to protect her before this match. So, then it's down. Emma immediately, I think she missed her cue. She immediately rolls in and it pins Sasha Banks, but like I think she missed her cue because it's the tap out, and then like it's the way it's so sloppy the way she rolls her up and everything like that.
Yes.
The right person won at the end of the day, just because they clearly wanted to do something where they showcased Asuka, and it makes sense to save the dream matches in the future for like Bailey and Sasha Banks and everything. So Emma was a perfect opponent for Asuka to face first. But coincidentally enough, though, WWE just threw the matches away anyways between Bailey and Asuka. No, Bailey and Asuka, Sasha Banks and Asuka, just on Raw. Could save up for pay-per-views, because why would you want to make money anyways? So
they don't want to make any money.
Yeah.
Zero money.
Yeah, afterwards, Emma would cut an interview saying that, she's going to prove she started the women's evolution and everything. Your thoughts on this match? I give this match 2.25 star. It was and that's not a good rating for like the talent that's in this match.
2.
Yeah.
And because Emma won, it was the right person that won in the end, but it was just such a weird finish.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Say that again?
At the end, it's like, whoa, there's the finish. It came up really quick.
Yeah. Afterwards, Asuka would go on to face Emma. And I remember that match didn't do Asuka any services because I think it should have been a squash, and she had like a 50-50 competitive match with Emma. Yeah. I remember the biggest thing I remember coming out of that match is Emma got fired right afterwards. And Leo Rush made a comment about it, just joking around on social media. And that's what caused Leo Rush to get like backstage heat on him for a while. And then, as for everybody went, Sasha Banks and Bailey would have a forever, let's tease this feud, but then not do this feud type of thing. And then, Sasha Banks, they would become the first ever women's tag team champions. Which nothing really happened with that. Sasha Banks took time off for one of many times. Bailey would go on to like win the SmackDown Women's title and everything, and then when Sasha Banks returned, Bailey turned heel and basically has the gimmick that she has now. She became the longest reigning SmackDown Women's champion ever. I think she still has the record to this day. And then
they were dual champions too, I think, right?
Yeah, they were. Sasha won the Raw Women's title, and they were both like the women's tag team champions at the same time. And then
they carried the pandemic era.
Yeah, in the beginning stages, anyways. Yeah, and then they feuded in the pandemic. Kind of rushed it a little bit. I know we say that we wanted the feud for so long, but I remember the feud only like went one pay-per-view when it should have they should have dragged that out till WrestleMania.
It was Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, and then they feuded, and then Sasha Banks became the first ever African woman to main event WrestleMania with Bianca Belair, which I don't think should have been the main event of WrestleMania that year, but that's just an unpopular opinion I have. Um, and then she took time off again. She was meant to face Bianca Belair at SummerSlam for the belt, the SmackDown Women's belt. Never showed up. We never knew why. We still don't know to this day why that didn't happen. And then Sasha Banks has been in The Mandalorian, and the WWE really didn't capitalize on that big star power. I have seen that episode, and she doesn't really do anything all that much in that episode. So it's not like she really did anything important. She's just there. And then she, you know, what else? Sasha Banks basically won the women's tag belts with Naomi, and they walked out earlier this year, and it looks like they're coming back, but we haven't seen them show back up again. Bayley would get injured shortly after her SmackDown Women's title reign. She basically didn't come back to earlier this year, and now she's in the stable with Dakota Kai and Io Sky as the Damage Control, spelled CT RL. And then
That's really like crazy too, because she was ramping back up to go back onto live crowds again, and then I think it was a week before or 2 weeks before that show in Houston, but then that first episode back with a live crowd, and she got hurt, and it's oh damn,
yeah, that sucks.
She was talking about on social media how much she couldn't wait to get back in front of a live crowd again, and then I think she tore ACL, and then she was out fucking 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
And then it's just it robbed her of that moment. So it was awesome to see her come back at SummerSlam and get the moment that she honestly deserved.
Yeah, and then and she probably has the most talked about, one of the most talked about moments coming out of SummerSlam this year too. And then as for Alicia Fox, shortly after this, she would have that. She would basically just be in the same role, and then she had an incident where she got drunk and showed up at a live event drunk, and then basically was released afterwards, and she's basically on a Legends contract now. We haven't seen Alicia Fox come back. I think
she's done a few things, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah,
just sober now.
Yeah,
she's been sober for a few years now.
And then as for Emma, she would go on to sign with Impact Wrestling and have stints in ROH as her real name, Tenille Dashwood. She's won the Knockouts tag titles and stuff. And she just recently left Impact Wrestling, and it looks like she might be returning to WWE. Which
she could too, because her boyfriend is Madcap Moss. So we could
yeah,
a couple in WWE together.
And then as for Dana Brooke, I think shortly after this, she joined Titus Worldwide as the publicist or something. That never really went anywhere. And then
because this is post Charlotte.
Yeah.
For her.
And then after that fizzled out, she didn't really do all that much. She'd just be there. You would half the time forget she was even signed to WWE. And then she's had multiple reigns as 24/7 champion. And that's it.
She was in a tag team with Mandy, weren't they? I think they were tag champs too. I think at one point.
Yeah, I don't think they were tag champs, but they were a tag team. Yes.
At least competing for the tag titles.
Yeah.
But they were terrible. So.
Yeah. And then we talked about the Finn Balor interview already. Kalisto gets interviewed, and he talks about how he's looking forward to fighting for the Cruiserweight Championship, and said he's going to win the title for all of his heroes like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. It's such a scripted promo that he cuts here, because I don't even think he really believes half the things that he's saying.
I mean, he has a story, grew up in Mexico. I wouldn't be surprised if he.
Yeah. But you could just tell it was scripted, and that was it. He said he always wanted to be the Cruiserweight champion when he grew up, and when he was when he got signed to WWE, but that doesn't even make any sense because there was no cruiserweight division when he got signed to WWE. So I don't even.
It's like when Michael Cole said that Liv Morgan wanted to be the SmackDown Women's Champion when she was older.
Yeah.
When she was younger, she wanted to be the SmackDown Women's Champion. There was no SmackDown Women's Championship in 2004.
Then we had the main event. It was the lumberjack match for the cruiserweight championship. It was Enzo Amore defending against Kalisto. All the cruiserweights come out and do their entrance. The only ones that got entrances were Cedric Alexander, Mustafa. No, but did Mustafa Ali get an entrance? He should have because he had a match on this show. If he didn't, that doesn't make sense. Rich Swann got in.
I think three of the baby faces did.
Yeah, Rich Swann, Tozawa.
Cedric,
you know what's weird?
Mustafa and Rich Swann.
You know what's weird? Tony Nese got an entrance. That was kind of weird. Because he's like...
I think was he the comeback? No. Was he the comeback from commercial break entrance?
No, he was before the commercial break entrance. Because when they come back...
Yeah, because they came back from commercial break and Enzo came out.
No, they came back from commercial break and they were playing like the 205 Live like theme music while they were all out there. And
that's what it was. And then Enzo came out.
And then they announced on 205 Live that the next day that it was Rich Swann was going to face TJP, which was really random to announce that because they were meant to be feuding, but they were going to be working together like in this lumberjack match. So I don't even think they should have even announced. But
it was my favorite storyline of all time: best friends turned enemies.
Remember, that was a big thing.
Everyone was a best friend.
Yeah.
It's all best friends.
That was like half of the storylines on...
That was the worst. I don't think they had any ideas besides, these people were best friends for over 10 years, and now they hate each other. That was the worst. I hated that.
Yeah. They also announced on that show, on the next episode of Raw, Roman Reigns was going to face Braun Strowman in the steel cage match, which, set up Kane's return. And, it would set up, Braun Strowman turning babyface, getting thrown in the dumpster, and feuding with Kane, The Miz, and everything like that.
It was honestly the turn that Braun Strowman needed.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't get him the title, unfortunately, but it was the turn he needed. So then, if you want to know what Braun Strowman is now, because we didn't talk about it, he would basically, fizzle out. They never really capitalized on his popularity. But by the time he won the belt, it was basically when nobody wanted him to be champion because he was like a replacement to Roman Reigns, and everyone shit on it. Because he was also making comments about indies and stuff like that, and it was not really very favorable. Then he went on to, let's be honest, have a pretty bad run with the Universal Championship during the pandemic and everything.
This is post Dogs of War.
Yeah. And then he got released randomly. No, they claimed that his contract cost too much money, which I think is just a bunch of bullshit. And then he went on to, he tried to control his own narrative, but he didn't want to do that anymore, and he returned to WWE earlier this year. He did his, but apparently,
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and apparently, according to EC3, this is what I don't know if you heard his comments about Strowman's return. He said he's still controlling his own narrative. That's just part of the CY. That's part of the CYN. Sure, EC3. Believe that if you want to. Sure.
Couldn't afford to keep him, too. How about that?
Huh?
How about the fact that he probably couldn't afford to keep him?
Yeah.
Because when WWE came in with that money, Braun was like, yep, I'm coming back. I like how he got this, big fucking love fest from EC3, and then Karrion Kross got nothing, even though Karrion Kross was signed to the brand.
Wait, tell me about this. I don't even know about this.
So, EC3, when he signed, when Braun signed, he gave him this, what looked like a fucking 3-page love letter of just gushing all over, like compliments left and right. And then, like, when Karrion Kross came back, there was no mention of him being, like, at all on social media. But apparently they're doing an event with Karrion Kross, the CYN. That's still a thing, apparently, even though they canceled, like, their most recent tour because of Adam Scherr or Braun Strowman. They had to cancel their event.
Yeah, because he was probably the big draw out of that show. So yeah, continue. I almost forgot to send a text message to someone I was supposed to send when we got to the main event. So I just remembered.
I was gonna say, I hope you remembered because I was about to do it.
Yeah. So then that's behind the scenes talk, by the way, guys. You don't get to know about any of that stuff. But so it's only stuff we can know about. If you guys even think about trying to get the behind the scoops, we're just gonna shut that down. Only 3 people know what's going on right now, and you guys aren't gonna be those people.
And one of them's not even here right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably gonna be other people. I say that there's gonna be like John and Steve. So I don't even think we're gonna mention it to John and Steve. They're gonna have to they have to be here for this to happen. You guys don't even get to know. I'm not telling you. We're gonna take that to the grave with us.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, yeah. So we had this cruiserweight championship match, and basically the storyline was anytime Enzo got thrown out, the cruiserweights would throw him back in, and anytime the Kalisto got thrown out, they throw him back in. What didn't make any sense about this?
In case the people forgot what a lumberjack match was, they need to explain it 50,000 times.
What didn't make any sense about this, though, was the stipulation goes back on after all the cruiserweights, before all the cruiserweights, if Enzo retains this championship. What didn't make any sense about this was the heels were helping Enzo try to win this match. It doesn't make any sense.
It didn't. So if Enzo won, none of the heels will be able to get a championship opportunity.
Yeah. I think we did talk about. I remember we talked about this. I think you brought this up at the time, actually, too. It was you that brought it up when we did. We actually reviewed this episode, like when it happened and everything.
His fucking.
Eventually, the lumberjacks spill into chaos. Mustafa Ali throws Enzo back in, and then Alia Daivari gets pissed about this, which again doesn't make any sense because it doesn't help him if Enzo retains the belt. And it was one of those things, by the way, where on Raw, because it also didn't make any sense either, because the whole thing was the cruiserweights were supposed to hate Enzo, but then Alia Daivari all of a sudden liked Enzo. It didn't make any sense. Because they would do a thing on Raw where they would all beat him up, and then on 205 Live, the heels would like him. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Again, it's one of those wrestling things. It's like when Cora Jade recently said on NXT, we're going to talk about it, where she was feuding with Toxic Attraction. And I think she legit said this in a promo. For some reason, I'm starting to respect them. I wonder what that reason is, by the way. I wonder what that reason is. All we respect Toxic Attraction, by the way.
The big letters. HEEL. Heel.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, watching a movie and, like, somebody becomes like a villain, and all of a sudden, like the villain that hated the villains in the movie, all of a sudden liked each other just because they're villains now. That's basically what this is.
It's true.
But anyhow, so then Enzo hits the Eat Defeat, which is the Jordanzo. I remember Michael Cole calls it this move, and Corey Graves like shits all over this move too, like the name of the move too. Like he doesn't even want to talk. He doesn't even. And Mustafa Ali puts his foot on the rope, and Enzo attacks Mustafa Ali because that's believable in real life, Vince. That Enzo would be able to kick Mustafa Ali's ass. That's freaking believable. He goes to hit something off the top rope. I don't even know what he was going to hit because Enzo didn't do any moves off the top rope. And Kalisto counters it into the Salida del Sol off of the turnbuckles, and he becomes the new Cruiserweight champion. They probably did this because they realized they were going to get a lot of backlash with Neville leaving. So they had Kalisto win the belt. Obviously, a big pop to end the show. I say a big pop. The crowd could have given any more of a shit about this match because they didn't.
Yeah.
This, and honestly, like, it's just like, no one really cared about Kalisto being in this division either. I remember when he joins the division, like, nobody reacted at all. Like, they were. And this is when Kalisto, I don't know if you remember, he went back to, like, his Lucha Bros theme music. Because remember, he had this, like, theme music that was, like, really techno, that was, like, awful.
It was bad.
Yeah. This match
Inquiring minds say Enzo's finish was a top rope DDT.
There it is.
Who is this that is speak now is gone?
That's the man from the sky. That's the man. It's Vince Russo when he was doing the man from the sky gimmick in WCW. I don't remember what they call it. Wasn't it the man in black in, like, WCW?
Something like that. I don't even know. The higher power?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
That's why we're so big league. We got Vince Russo working with us. But at this moment, he's fired because he doesn't believe that Vince is retired. So that just being delusional gets you fired. I just wanted to say I fired Vince Russo, so he's fired.
He has a really high voice.
Because the people that won WCW can say, not WCW, WYW can say, oh, I'm never going to hear the end of that now that I screwed that name up. But the people that fired the people that won WYW could say they fired
What's
Jim
that
Cornette.
WCW again?
Yeah, I know I did. You know me, I'm not good when it comes to acronyms and all that type of stuff. The people that won WYW can say they fired Jim Cornette. Now I can say I fired Vince Russo. So, anyhow, I don't know. Oh, so yeah, Kalisto won the championship. And then I give the match 2 stars because I still like the fact that Enzo lost. So what did you think of this match?
I give it 2 stars because Enzo lost, and the fact that Corey Graves was on a viewed as vitriol towards Enzo Amore.
Yeah,
and I agree with him. That he said.
So yeah, after this, Kalisto didn't have a long run with the title. He only had it for 2 weeks. Enzo would regain the championship at TLC, which was a terrible decision. Even though I think we all knew that was going to happen. I think we had a feeling Enzo. Huh?
It was predictable.
Yeah, and then Enzo had like a terrible run with the belts. Anytime he was on 205 Live, it brought the show down. I remember they did like a crossover episode with NXT UK where Enzo just shit all over the brand, which is wondering, look where NXT UK is now. So that really did some good favors for NXT UK. And then they tried to do like a relationship storyline with Nia Jax, which was terrible because Nia Jax would like act like she loved Enzo, and then we meant to take her seriously as like a monster, so that was even bad. And then unfortunately, actually I say unfortunately, but fortunately this happened. Enzo had some allegations. I say unfortunately because it sucks for the person, but it did help everybody. Enzo had some allegations against him, which I don't even know were even true because I think there wasn't enough evidence, so they just called off the investigation. Where it ended up causing him to be fired, so they had to basically rebrand 205 Live. And honestly, I know it sucks for the person if these allegations are true, and I'm not saying it, and I can't believe I'm saying this. These allegations, I think, were the best thing, obviously, at the time that happened, because it allowed Triple H to finally take over 205 Live. And honestly, that like first one of 205 Live was like the best run of 205 Live. Like I wish Noah Foster did 205 Live Banners then, because like 205 Live was like almost like NXT levels of great. That's how good it was. You were seeing like hella matches, and there's still. I mean, it still sucked because it was still they still couldn't get on the main card of the main pay-per-views or anything like that. But it was still awesome, and it led to like 205 Live being rejuvenated up until Vince took over control of NXT and just ended the cruiserweight division. because he doesn't like cruiserweights. And
Too short.
Huh?
Too short.
Yep. And Enzo Amore tried a rap career. It failed miserably. I think he's still trying it, though. And then he showed up at a few wrestling events. He tried to hijack Survivor Series that caused him to get banned from the venue. They did a storyline on ROH where him and Big Cass, what he was called, I think he was called like Big XL or something like that at the time.
Like Cass XL or what?
Yeah. They invaded ROH, so that was shit on. And then he basically like shows up at like indie shows and stuff like that. And I think the best thing about Enzo's career though is Simon Goss shitting all over him in that shoot interview. That's the greatest thing ever. And then as for Kalisto, he would be a mainstay in the cruiserweight division. He would form the Lucha House Party with Grand Metalik and Lince Dorado, and that lasted until Kalisto got released. Remember they tried to do like a storyline where it looked like he was going to turn heel, and then they dropped it because they got separated by the draft and everything like that.
Yep.
Kalisto got released. He had like one match in AEW for the AAA tag team titles, and then he made like a tweet about Brody Lee, and he got basically blacklisted from AEW because he was like never close with Brody Lee and everything. So like AEW wanted nothing to do. Well, not the AEW, but the people backstage wanted nothing to do with him
because he's fucking spelt. He added one letter.
Yeah. And then now he just wrestles in AAA pretty much. And, he's just chilling in AAA. So good for Kalisto. As for the rest of whether the rest of the division is, Cedric Alexander, we talked about. Tony Nese would get his run with the belt eventually. He lasted as a heel for a while. And then this was right after you and James made the video of how to troll a Birdman, where you just posted Tony Nese tweets into the chat and everything. So then James and I just watched that video recently. So then Tony Nese went on to win the Cruiserweight Championship after he had a tag team with Buddy Murphy. Had a pretty good run with the belts. Then eventually he went back to being a heel and teamed up with Drew Gulak. He basically stayed in the Cruiserweight division for the rest of his WWE career. Then he got released. And now he just signed with AEW. He was the biggest free agent signing of AEW, apparently.
One of them is the biggest free agent signing.
And then now he's a tag team with Josh Woods with Smart Mark Sterling as the manager. And let's be real, he's kind of in about the same spot that he was in WWE. Like he wrestles on Dog mainly, and he gets like jobbed out on Dynamite for the most part. So, Drew Gulak would have an awesome one with the Cruiserweight Championship. And now he basically it's just a lower card jobber pretty much. I kind of hope I kind of want him to get released in the sense so he can reform his tag team with Bryan Danielson and be a part of the Blackpool Combat Club, because I think that'd be pretty cool. Question is would AEW do that though? Because I think they might, because they like Bryan Danielson enough, but. Then you want to add too many members to the Blackpool Combat Club. Akira Tozawa pretty much would just stay in the Cruiserweight division. He got called up on Raw as a jobber, and then he became a ninja, pretty much. And now he's just enhancement talent. So
he's the ninja enhancement talent.
Yeah, not good for Akira Tozawa. Let's see. Grand Metalik and Lince Dorado would last a little longer as a tag team together. They both ended up getting released. And Grand Metalik basically works indies like New Japan and GCW. I think he's working Impact taping recently. And Lince Dorado is just chilling out probably in Mexico or something like that. And then Rich Swann, he would get released shortly after this because of some type of dispute that he had with Su Yun where they claimed it was domestic violence, but then we found out that wasn't true. But they never brought him back because the news things were it was still too recent of an event. So then eventually he got signed with Impact Wrestling. where he's been ever since. He's held the Digital Media, Impact World, and X Division championships since then. And he got to have like a 5-star match with Kenny Omega, so he did pretty well for himself. And then Noam Dar, he was there. He got injured shortly after this. He came back and was somewhat a part of the 205 Live division, NXT UK division, and then full on the NXT UK division, or the brand anyways, where he won the Heritage Cup twice, and we don't know what the future of Noam Dar looks like because the NXT UK brand just recently folded, and they haven't announced that he's been released or anything like that. So I imagine that he's going to go to NXT or maybe back to the main roster at some point. TJP would last a little longer in the Cruiserweight division. He got released in 2019. And he basically has been on excursion in Impact, holding the X Division title a couple of times. And in New Japan, he's now a part of the United Empire as the IWGP light heavyweight tag team titles, or the Super Junior tag team titles, with his partner. I forget his name because he's like a fairly new wrestler and everything. And then, trying to think if I have to remember anybody else.
I think you covered them all.
Yeah, I think that's everyone. By the way, how sad is that like half of the division, the only ones that are left are Cedric Alexander, Drew Gulak, and Mustafa Ali. I think everybody else is gone pretty much, which is just really sad. But yeah, that was this episode of. I don't know what that was.
What the hell was that?
No, we're not even going to address that this time. That's just going to be, yeah. Whoever that was, his mic broke up real bad, so I couldn't even understand him. So
yeah, he sounds kind of stupid.
Akira too.
Oh, Akira's still there. That's right.
Really dumb.
I forget. Akira Tozawa's still there. That's right. Because he's you know why I forgot about him? Because he's a ninja. Ninjas are stealth like that. You know, they have a tendency to be really fast. But yeah, that's this episode of Raw for the Retro. I don't even know what to give this for like a grade. Because let's start with you. I feel like you're going to give it a higher grade because you have more of a nostalgic feel for this show than I do.
I give it a B for the Shield.
Wow, you're going to be way more generous than I am. This is a terrible show, to be honest. Honestly, the only thing to watch is the Shield reunion if you're going to go back and rewatch the show. I wouldn't even recommend that. Just go find the clip on YouTube. It's right there on YouTube if you want to watch the Shield reunion. Because nothing else was like really all that good on the show. Two like all-time terrible segments in the Mickie James and Sister Abigail segment. You had Enzo Amore as the Cruiserweight champion that caused Neville to leave, so that's a big thing that happened. Because of that, we lost Neville pretty much in a wrestling capacity for like 2 years because his contract got frozen and everything. You didn't have a match that went past like 5 minutes. I get it's not about the in-ring components, but for a freaking 3-hour show to not have a match go past 5 minutes, that's pathetic.
It is, yeah.
And commentary was terrible. Not good at all. And yeah, this is definitely one of those cases where I think this product was definitely just made to appease Vince. And you can just tell, by the way, during this time they always throw the freaking towel in when football comes back on because they just don't care. They know they're going to lose the ratings war to football, and I think that's proven that's not an excuse because we've seen how Triple H run things. If you actually think about it, this was the first week that Raw ran against football, and the ratings roughly stayed the same for the most part. That's just so that just shows you right there that Vince and honestly, they might be better because we've talked about the ratings before. the Nielsen rating system's so fucked up nowadays that
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter.
It's back now, so
Yeah, football
Yeah.
came back.
the
Football
first
was
week one was this past Sunday, and Monday Night Football. The first week of Monday Night Football was this past Monday.
yeah. But I'm saying like I think they did go down a little bit, but not as much as like if Vince takes over. To be fair, this is October. I will be, and there was there was other sports on at the time, but I'm just saying I do want to. I think that definitely deserves to be pointed out because that Vince would use that as an excuse because 1 week with Triple H involved, one up against football, and the ratings, didn't really change all that much. So, yeah, I don't think I give it a letter grade. I'm giving this show a freaking D- because of the only thing to watch on this show is the freaking show reunion. Again, I think you're gonna say, well, why did you in real time give the show such a higher grade? You gotta remember, we all did it together. We had John doing his Enzo Amore impression. I think there was other funny things that happened. I think that's why we gave it such a high. I think we upped the grade because of John's Enzo Amore impression. That's how much we love his Enzo Amore impression. So, yeah, it's just like, oh, and believe it or not, we would get like worse shows in like 2018. Like, honestly, like, I can understand when you watch the show back now. I think we all laugh at James sometimes when he would say like, "This is like the worst the products has ever been. That's not going to get any better." If you do watch the next year, we would have laws that were like all-time worst laws, and it would just be bad. So
Yeah.
we owe James, I think, a little bit of an apology because somewhat he was right in some cases. I think sometimes. I'm not saying, by the way, we thought this was a great show. I think sometimes we'd be so blind we would hope for change in the future. It never came. It didn't come under Vince's leadership, anyways. So thank God Vince is gone. And now that I've said, and by the way, now that I've talked about it, don't you dare ever tell me that Vince McMahon is still running things because I'm going to point you to this show right here. Because that's just not the case. Anyhow, I'm milking it a little bit. I'm going to end this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Chris, do you have anything to plug or promote? I kind of forgot I was not doing this video myself, so I went to like the format.
Let's see. Do I have anything to plug or promote? Watch the Wrestling Rundown.
Yeah, we're doing that. I don't know when you guys are going to see this video. We're recording it Saturday, which I think is when you'll see this video. That video should either be coming out or already out. So
Yeah.
so
Command.
if you want to hear our current thoughts about WWE, we haven't talked about WWE currently in like since Vince has retired pretty much. So it's going to be a fun video. I hope we can do it. I hope you don't get like called into work the last minute. Which if that happens, I'm going to be sending a text message to a certain someone. So I say text, but it's probably going to be a Facebook message because I don't have his phone number. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
But as for my stuff, you can check out past retros, which we did like a big retro comeback this summer. I'd say tour, but we didn't really change rooms or anything like that. I think the only things that changed were like people toured over here to do their retros. We did like some Summer Slams. We did. I don't think we did anything UK related. So I guess SummerSlam 92, but yeah, just check out all those past Summer Slams. And I'm gonna announce the next retro. I hope it's the next one. John Tuddy and I plan on hating out. He's going to be making his epic return to the Wrestling Rundown. I say epic, and John Tuddy's just going to like not make much of a big deal about it because John, he likes to troll with you sometimes when it comes to that. He's just going to like be hating out, and we're going to be reviewing Judgment Day 2007. That's the show he picked. Because I think John's on a 2007 wrestling kick right now. If you read it, if you're in the wrestling group chat. So it's going to be interesting to go back and watch that show. one big thing that'll come out of that show is that's actually Chris Benoit's last match on pay-per-view, if you really think about it, because he didn't have another match afterwards. But yeah, check that out. Check out AEW Spark that Chris and I recorded yesterday. It's not going to mean as much now because AEW Dynamite's already happened, but we had some technical issues. There's nothing we could do about it. And making history, I'm going to have a guest on AEW Spark. I'm going to be doing it at 11 o'clock. I'm going to be recording it at 11 o'clock at night. Gary Joe, who used to be on Noah's show, is going to be on AEW Spoke. And that'll be interesting because that's going to be the first time we've ever interacted like this. I mean, it won't be as special as when Noah and I did it because legit, the first time I ever met Noah was doing a rundown. I mean, like you, literally. I never talked to Noah or anything before that. So that could lead to something. Gary Joe could be a big part of the Wrestling Fortune 44 YouTube channel. So that could lead to something. Like it did for Noah. So we'll see. But that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, I was just milking it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching this video. And I'll talk to you guys later. And since this is being recorded in the past, I'll talk to you guys in the future.
We doing all the classics, you heard it, then I grabbed it. Flow like Method Man, then run like I'm Rabbit. Soon as I hear the bass line, it be my FaceTime. Music's in my veins, so just in case I'm without my iPod or a media player, I'll check my